It's Friday, December 20th, 2024. Start off, as we always do, by saying that you can go, very simply, to supportourshow.com if you'd like to support our show at a .com. Very simple. That's it. Now, I didn't tell Lando any of this, so we'll see if this works. But I wanted to start off because Apple did a fun little thing, which I don't often say. So, on your computer, open up your music app. Your Apple. I don't like that it is Apple Music, and yet it's alphabetized under just music. Well, it's no, it's just music now. So it's A.
If all our audio crashes,
it won't. This should not crash it because it's going to open a web page, and then you can close music entirely.
Now what?
All right, so you open that up and go to you should start at Apple Music Home.
No, I just started
on the left.
Apple
Does it
Music.
have home? No, what I'm saying is on the left.
Home. Yes, there you go. Apple Music Home.
Right,
Got
just scroll down to about midway.
I have
and
nothing
there should be. You have nothing in your home thing?
No, it just says get 3 months free.
Oh, you don't have Apple Music?
No, fuck Apple Music. I don't use it.
Oh no, I have it because I didn't realize you never use it. Well, because I have iTunes Match, that's where I store all my music as a backup.
I know.
That's
whereas I don't use their cloud.
Well, we'll just do mine then. All right, let's see.
So what it do?
So this basically this tells you like what you've listened to over the year. Now I haven't looked at this, so I'm very curious. So this will tell you.
It tells you like what you were listening to at certain periods.
Yeah. So I'm kind of curious. Let's see if I hit this button. All right. Oh, hold on. Even though it automatically bumped me out from the app, I have to re-sign in again. Oh, Apple.
Did the background noise just catch someone arguing over ordering a hot dog?
It may have. Yeah, it's possible.
Jesus, that was very. Normally I don't catch anything from the background, but I have clearly heard somebody discussing hot dogs. It's very funny. Anyway,
it's very possible. All right, so here we go.
So it booted you out, huh?
No, it just made me sign in again, even though it transferred me from my already signed in thing. Okay, welcome to Apple Music, motherfucker. All right, here we go. All right, play my highlight. Oh, interesting. Here we go. 108 total artists. Oh, my top, really? Okay, isn't this like your most played song? Well, yeah, it is. This is basically it's just interesting because I never pay attention to how I play music. I don't.
See, I have in actual iTunes, I have it set up so I can see the date I added stuff, the date that how many plays it's been. They also have another thing that's like how often you skip a song, which that one's really interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I pay attention to a lot of that. And the shitty thing is that whenever I have some kind of crash with Apple or anything like that, I lose the original run. So like right now, my top most played songs, I know are not the most played songs because there are other songs I played hundreds of times before them. But it is interesting because it does show me the kind of new place I'm in, where it's like, okay, well, those songs are the old songs are still on the list, but these new songs are the ones that are at the top of the list. So I kind of already have a version of that.
This is very strange. I am very curious how it's figuring this out because some of this doesn't make any sense, but some of it does, some of it doesn't. So basically it has top artists, which is, it says 108 total. We're not going through all 8. Number 1 is AC/DC, which actually I think is true. However, the funny part about that is I think a lot of that comes from the fact that when I put in headphones, it
Yeah.
automatically launches Apple Music, and the first album is Back in Black in my list. So
Oh.
it automatically starts playing it.
Yeah.
So, yes, technically, those minutes are probably true, but only because it automatically opens. Which
Well,
doesn't
I
really
have
happen
that
to figure out
too,
to turn
because
it off.
sometimes if I play like my most played list, you automatically play the songs at the top of the list, which just makes it so you play them more. By citing its popularity, it then gets played more popularly.
Well, the interesting part is it often does make me want to then listen to the rest of the album, so I would say it actually works. In any event. Number 2, Led Zeppelin, that's predictable. Number 3 is Hello Meteor, which actually does line up because I've been listening to a lot of that stuff this year because it's very weirdly diverse ambient music that has wildly different tones. Then Martin Matisky, which is that song that you thought was an actual 80s song because I listened to that for 3 months straight. Laura Cartman, I don't even know who that is, so I don't get that one. Aphex Twin, number 6, yes. Enmesh for number 7, okay. Peter Gabriel's number 8, that's fine. Duet is number 9, yes. Sisters of Mercy, number 10. I would have expected that to be higher up. So that most of that makes sense, but there's one artist I don't even know who that is. So I don't know.
You know what?
Let's
go to your actual songs, right?
Yeah.
And click on most plays.
Where do you do that?
So go down, see where it says library?
Yeah. Oh, songs. Okay.
Go to songs, and then on the top thing, you should have a thing that says plays. Click on that.
Where does it say plays?
Oh, do you not have it as an option?
No, all I have is name, artist, album, time.
Oh, okay, yeah. So if you what is it? You right click it. Yeah, you double click the columns. It'll show you all of the columns you can have.
Double click.
And in there, there's cloud. Yeah, so the actual column at the top, you double click it. Or sorry, you right click it. Right click it. Right click
it. Okay.
Yeah, and then it'll show you all the possible columns that you can have in there.
It doesn't for me.
Really?
No, it just has
like
type.
if you.
Oh wait. You mean that? Hold on. Wait a minute. No, that's up next. I don't want up next.
No, yeah. So when you're looking at songs, right? At the top.
Oh, hold on.
Title.
Sorry. This is in the website. Fuck. I gotta open the web.
No.
You're talking about the app, right?
Yeah, you gotta be in the app.
It made it look the same, so I got lost. Hold on. Let me go back. All right, sorry. Here we go. Yeah, because I was going to say, I remember. Oh, yes, I see it. Okay, hold on.
Yeah. Do you have
Holy
plays?
Shit. Wow. Well, this must be all time, right?
Yeah, this is as long as this version of your computer has been existing.
Yeah, well, I've played Detroit City Ambience from Deus Ex Human Revolution 1,056 times.
Wow!
I used to sleep to that, so that makes sense. Actually, Deus Ex Human Revolution, all are 1,000s. All of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, you did sleep to that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna
while.
rule some of this out because this was on the sleep rotation. So let me get past where I know sleep stuff is in here. Actually, okay. Yeah. Then we're getting into a lot of synthwave stuff, so that makes sense. This is much more diverse then.
Yeah, but I mean that gives you an interesting vision of where your music is at.
Yeah. No kidding. Huh.
You know.
Yeah.
And the stuff, and honestly, the stuff that you listen to the most, because whether you realize it or not, you're listening to that fucking that Sleep album quite a bit.
Yeah, that's true. This is true.
So
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, apparently my top genres are hard rock, arena rock, which to me is basically the same thing. Metal, which I don't know that I would classify. I mean, I do listen to a lot of White Zombie, but I just consider that trash rock. Electronic and rock. So basically, 4 out of 5 is rock. I don't know why I just don't use rock.
I'm electronic, folk, and what was the other? And alternative.
Yeah, and here's a weird thing. Oh, interesting. Wow. Last year, I listened to Matt Berry for almost 500 minutes compared to AC/DC at 120 this year. So last year would have been more folky. Well,
I'm less folky now than I used to be, but I still love my folk music that I grew up with. I love Suzanne Vega.
Do you know what my number 3 album for this year is?
What is that?
The remix album that the guy who did the original Deus Ex did of Deus Ex, but he remixed it. Yeah, there's the theme. There's the theme.
I think you like it. Yeah.
Oh, DMX. Oh, it's always nice to see DMX pop up. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, I like to put the most played songs at the top and then go to the bottom of the list and see if there's anything I haven't played that's on my iTunes. because that happens.
Oh, that's an interesting. Oh, let's see. All right, let me go to the bottom line.
Because I do have stuff that like I listen to.
I have lots of zeros.
Yeah, and it's because you listen to it on your phone or you listen to it elsewhere, and iTunes doesn't pick it up. So that's actually kind of fascinating to me because you're like, oh, wait a minute, this is stuff that I.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I have a lot of that.
A lot of ones. A lot of ones. A lot of twos.
Yeah.
A lot of threes.
Yeah, I don't listen to Vivaldi on my iTunes. I listen to it on my phone. So, yeah.
That's fascinating.
A lot of that.
Okay.
So, that data, man. That's what they want.
Replay and share your music. Yeah. Well, that's okay. I don't need to do that now. But yeah, now I'm getting to a lot of Aphex Twin popping up now. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, honestly, so the song that used to be at the top of my list for the longest time was the. Do you remember the remake of Firestarter that they did? That was almost like a lounge remake for the.
Oh sure, yeah.
What was that? What was that game they made it for? Just Cause, for Just Cause 3.
Yes, that's it. Yep.
That was at the top of my list for years. that was like my theme music. Do you ever have that? That there's periods in your life that have theme music?
Well, clearly Deus Ex is one of them.
Deus Ex, there you go. Yeah, so for a period of my life, that song, which is a remix of Firestarter. Oh man, who's the band?
Prodigy.
No. The guy who did the remix.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, I found it. It's Torum. It was right here. So Torum Florum Destat. So
Sure.
So I guess it's Tori Florum, Toreflorim. He did a lounge, almost like I don't even know what to call it, like
type of thing.
No, not even. It's like a 70s. It's not cheesy at all. It's just this really slow down.
No. Richard Cheese is the guy who does the lounge versions.
Oh, I know, but
all the lounge versions.
It is. Oh, yeah, but he does them in kind of a funny way. Whereas this is not really
similar
funny.
Similar sound.
And the thing is, because I heard it when I was watching the Just Cause 3 trailer, it kind of linked this homicidal intensity to the song. Yeah. And that was like the theme music to my life for a few years. It's just that song, and I loved it. Yeah.
Hold on.
Whereas the last 2 years, probably the most played song on here is the Postmodern Jukebox version of "Running Up That Hill." I don't know why, but that song really fucking appeals to me in that version. I mean, the original version's great, but this particular version, I don't know what it is. I like Postmodern Jukebox, though. I like the idea that a lot of their music comes from an alternate universe where all this music happened, but it happened in a different way. I like that kind of, so.
I'm looking at it. Mine goes back. It's got 20. They must have started doing this in 2022. So I look at 2022 Deus Ex, multiple albums. Now I want to look at 23 because what I'm curious about is. I'm just looking because I know when we played Wasteland 3, there was that one song that I was listening to.
Everybody get everybody get.
Yeah, the whatever version of that. But you know what? I don't think that was ever really officially released. I think I got that because somebody extracted it from the game, so it wouldn't be in here.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I thought it was on this super soundtrack they put out.
Oh, maybe that's what I'm thinking of. But
they put on like a super collection of all the music?
Sorry, what I mean is I don't think it's on Apple Music. I think the only way I have it is because I uploaded it to iTunes Match, and therefore it plays through Apple Music. Through the last online cloud storage locker for songs there is. So, sadly.
There you go.
I don't like that there's no other options, but there are. Yeah.
Oh, man, have you ever had, not to change the subject on you, but have you ever had kimchi?
God, no, and I never will.
Oh, man, I had it tonight for the first time. And,
That's the fermented thing, right?
Yes, it is. So the thing is, I
don't do fermented anything, so go on.
All right, I try to have a lot of fermented foods in my diet because fermented foods, they've proven, helps to break down microplastics in your system and gets it out of your gut, which is a very good thing.
It's fucking disgusting to look at.
Well, yep, yeah, but
you know how I am with wet food.
Is yogurt? Oh, you don't like yogurt because it's wet.
Okay, yogurt I like when it's the really thick kind of Greek kind. Where
like a skyr. Have you ever had skyr? That's a really thick Icelandic yogurt.
No, I doubt. I don't think I've had Icelandic, but there is an extra thick Greek yogurt that we get.
It's thicker than Greek.
Okay, yeah, I'd be fine
Yeah.
with that.
So, but yeah, so yogurt's fermented, so it's really good for it as well. But I try to vary my food so I don't just get honey adjusted to anything. And I love pickles, but you can't have yogurt and pickles. All
No, I don't like that.
So I tried kimchi tonight, and I gotta say, I didn't dislike it. It was an interesting experience. You would not like this. Yeah, it's very wet, which I don't mind wet. I kind of enjoy wet. But it's my wife was like, "What does it taste like?" Because she won't touch it, and I was like, "It's kind of like eating pickles and sauerkraut that are really spicy." Like, it's a weird, and I know that sounds bad to you, but like I like sauerkraut and I like pickles. I just never thought to put them together, and then there's kind of like something sweet in there as well. But it was like, you're trying to make sense of all these flavors as the fire is coming down on you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I got you.
It was strange. It was very strange. I overserved myself because I did not understand the power of this stuff, and no one would try it in my family. My son smelled it and almost fell over. So it was fun. My wife was like, "Do you think you'll get more?" And I was like, "I bought a little package of it." I was like, "I'm gonna finish the package I have, but I don't know. I don't know if I'll get more."
Yeah.
But you know what? It's one of those things where like you get oddly adjusted to certain foods, and like
Sure.
I know that it's good for me. I've read a lot about it, and I like pickles. I like sauerkraut. I guess I should have just put them together. Weird stuff. I just wanted to ask you if you tried it before, because I know your wife's a vegetarian. So
Absolutely no. She finds it disgusting as well.
Oh, does she? Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. I guess that the
for
world
me.
is separated into three people: the people who like kimchi, the people who hate kimchi, and then the people who, I guess, are mildly okay with it. That covers all groups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you could say that about almost every food.
Almost anything, yeah. But no, I enjoyed it. It was weird. I also wanted to mention that so Joe and I think, what was it, last show or the show before, we were talking about keyboards and the different
Last
kind
show.
of keyboards.
No, it was last
show. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I told Joe when we were playing video games, but I figured I'd mention it here, is I finally picked a keyboard, a new brand of keyboard to try, and I am trying the was it the Key.R? Is that what it's called? The Key.R? Yes, Key.R.
Yep.
I am trying the Key.R keyboards, and I like them a lot. The Philcos, which I loved before, had really great keys, but Philco never really they never did like backlit keyboards, and they never did like they stuck with plastics and things like that. Whereas one of the things I like about the Key.Rs, for one, they carry them Best Buy, which shocked the fuck out of me. I never thought I would find something like this at Best Buy. And to be fair, Best Buy had like one in like, how how Best Buy, there's always this one area where it's like all the odds and ends shit. They don't seem to know where to put it otherwise.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So there's like, I was walking down the aisle of keyboards, and there's like all these Razer keyboards and Glorious keyboards and S.T.A.L.K.E.R keyboards and everything.
They all have the shiny super RGB gamer nation.
Yeah. And then I get to the end, and then there's this kind of like past that aisle, there's just like these shelves on the wall, and it's kind of all the random shit that they didn't know what to do with, and they had a Key.R keyboard. And they're kind of neat. The one I got is the Q1. The base of it is essentially a slab of aluminum, which I have read the reviews of this, and people have said, and this is very true, if it fails you as a keyboard, it is a very good weapon. And I swear, if you hit somebody with this thing, it'll fucking hurt, because it is a solid slab of aluminum. This is not a very good mobile keyboard if anyone's looking to have one.
I think one of Key.R's kind of signature things is the aluminum or whatever it is that they put.
Oh yeah, like, well, on the higher end stuff, on the lower end ones, you still get plastic. But the thing, and I actually like they have a nice LED backlight on them, but it's a very frenetic backlight. So I know that with Razer keyboards, you can either plug into their software, or there's like hotkeys on the keyboard that you can have it kind of do basic stuff. And one of the things I like about the Razer keyboards is, this is the only thing for me that was better, really, is that they have kind of more relaxed LED settings on the keyboard, so you can have it just kind of be like a very calm glow. Whereas with the Keychrons, other than the ability to just make it a red light, all the other settings are kind of very quick. It's like a little bit overly frenetic for me. That's weird, but I've adjusted to it. Otherwise, I love the build. I like it has a little volume, or it doesn't. It's completely programmable, which is nice. If you plug into they have a software you can plug into, which lets you basically remap the keyboard if you want to. And in the upper hand corner, normally is where you'd have like the insert key, which I hate that key. That's the key that when you're writing, if you hit insert rather than write into what's already there, it actually just starts to eat anything in front of it.
I call it the consume key because it just starts eating the letters.
Yeah. Yes. So the insert key. So
I really wonder who the hell even uses that key.
I don't. They've removed
I don't either.
the insert key.
I hate it when I accidentally hit it too.
Oh yeah, and the thing is, you always hit it by accident. So I'm using the 10 keyless, and in this version of the 10 keyless, they removed the insert key, which you can still program it to be if you want, but they've put a volume knob. That's not a volume knob, but you can use it for anything. But they put a knob in that you can program to do different things. So I guess certain people use it as like not a focus. What do you call it? To magnify things on their screen if they want to.
Mm-hmm.
But it comes standard as a volume switch, which I actually like quite a bit. It's a very quick way to turn the volume up and down. It's right on the keyboard. It's one of those features where you're like, I didn't know I needed this, but now that I have it, I really want to keep it. Right? My biggest issue, and it's not really a huge issue because it's fixable, is that the Q1 Keychron comes with magnetic switches. And I'm just not a fan. And I got them specifically because I didn't want to have to make. I didn't want to have like every time Joe and I start looking something up, right? All you hear on my end, especially like last week, I was using a more. I think it was last week, a week before. I was using a more clacky keyboard. So when I started looking stuff up, all you could hear was like right. So I was like, okay, I'll get something with softer keys and it'll be okay. But I fucking hate typing on them. Listen to the noise. The noise is interesting. Can you hear that?
Barely. I can barely.
Barely, right? It's a very, very soft thing. But apparently what the magnetic switches are for is when you are gaming and you want as fast as possible reaction from the keyboard, the magnetic switches are fastest because they will, and you don't have to push them down that far. The problem is that when you're typing, especially if you're somebody who grew up with a typewriter, you end up almost tripping over yourself because it's so fast. Do you know what I mean? Like, I need there to be more of a mechanical twalk.
Yeah.
But luckily, the Keychrons are all hot swappable.
A little bit more deliberate kind of movement.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So I love the build. I just want different switches. And none of the switches that their keyboards come with are quite as heavy as I want. But because they're hot swappable, which the old S.T.A.L.K.E.Rs are not, the back when I was using S.T.A.L.K.E.Rs, they were all the switches are soldered to the soldered. Is that the word? Soldered.
Soldered.
Solder. There you go. Soldered to the board. They're soldered to the board. Whereas now you can mix and match. So I'm going to get some really clacky switches and put them on there so that you can hear me when I'm looking things up. But otherwise, it's a great keyboard. I love everything about it. I just want more mechanical switches. And luckily, the market is aflush with clicky switches. And it's easy as fuck to put them in now. So, times they are changing.
Yeah, I do like that they're making it easier for people that don't want to do... I mean, you could always replace switches on keyboards, but it was not always simple. And I think it is something that now that there are more options available, I am glad that there are a number of companies that are.
I wouldn't have done it.
No, that's what I mean. It was it was not geared for ordinary people. It was geared for hardcore nerds, I guess. And I don't think that's great because I think okay, but also in fairness, there was like most things, early on, mechanical keyboards were all you could get. and they were everywhere. And then there came a period where people didn't like that noise, and they wanted like silent. I had silent keyboards for a while because I just didn't have any real desire to have the more mechanical feel and sound. And then I kind of realized that there were a couple things I was putting up with on the silent keyboards that I wasn't happy with. One was that the travel wasn't really great, which is what you're talking about.
Well, you don't realize you have options until suddenly you see options.
Yes.
So for the longest time,
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, for the longest time, whatever keyboard you had was the keyboard that you had. The keyboard that came with the Dell computer was your fucking keyboard. Right. And it wasn't until you actually, like, they started carrying them in a store like Best Buy or any, like, what is it, CompUSA? What are the computer stores that we grew up with? CompUSA.
Circuit City, baby.
Circuit City. Oh, there you go. What was the other one? Office Depot, Office Max. They all had computers.
Sure.
But either way, you until those kinds of stores started carrying alternate options, you didn't even realize you had an option. And then, especially if you had a laptop, like, you know, my first computer, I skipped straight to laptop because I didn't have a computer growing up.
Right.
And I needed a laptop for school, and I had that basic, you know, the early. I really liked the early laptop keyboards because they were like slim, but they were still pretty mechanical.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a nice middle ground. But the second you start going to the store and they have other displays and you start feeling these different keys, you're like, oh, you know, this does feel kind of cool. And it's the whole, first you get used to the reality of a thing, then you move on to accessorizing all the different elements, to making it more and more the way you want. And then suddenly you start getting, you know, gaming mice or whatever kind of mice you like, or trackball mice, you know, and then you start getting different keyboards with colors and different lights and different levels of sensitivity. And yeah, you know, but it's the whole, you don't know what you don't know because there's no options in the beginning. You know, so anybody who had a custom keyboard in that time period had built their own keyboard from scratch or for putting, you know, various pieces together. So it's nice now that, you know, a layman can go in and make a keyboard that works perfectly for them.
Yeah, there's a lot of very good options all over the place. I mean, there still are silent keyboards for people who want that.
Oh, I mean, there's
my favorite thing is that many keyboards now allow for multi-point connections. I really think every keyboard should be able to connect to 3 different devices.
Yeah, the key
outside of its wiring.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. You can do Bluetooth to 3 different devices, which I know you like. Yeah, whereas I like having different keyboards for different things that I'm doing. So like
sub in lights. Lights tell me where I am.
I know, but the thing is, like, I have a whole different setup away from things where I write, and I have a different keyboard there, and that keyboard will be a loud as fuck keyboard. Whereas I might build a silent keyboard in the future just to do this show with you, so that you don't hear me fucking machine gunning away in the background.
I don't think it matters. I don't.
Well, it can. I mean, you know, people get hung up about weird noises. Plus, you'll know when I'm watching porn in the background, you know.
Well,
so
just assume you always have it running now.
Oh man, I couldn't do that. That'd be very distracting. To have pornography playing constantly in the background, Jesus.
I'd probably just end up critiquing it if I actually did such a thing. No, that can't.
Jeez, you know what?
No,
we should do that at some point. We should pick a piece of pornography, and we should review it as if it were like a theatrical release.
Terrible camera movement. I mean, that's just not. They're breaking the 180 rule all over the place.
Exactly.
Come on.
Yeah, special effects weren't that great.
No,
acting was so-so.
No, the performance. I mean, I really don't believe that she thought that plumber was going to be able to accept this as payment.
Story. Yeah, the story is so. Yeah,
narrative is just
not believable.
Very, very disjointed.
It's not believable that these two people would be together.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't feel the history. The chemistry just isn't there.
Oh, God, I
feel like this is all just pure superficial physicality for them.
Yeah. Where's the deeper meaning? Right? Where's the subtle undertones of the plot?
I didn't see a lot of care in the slap on that ass. That just did not look like.
And is that slap? Is that slap on the ass? Is that symbolism? Does it mean something
performative?
Deeper?
Very performative. I don't believe there's love here. I just don't. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we'll ruin porn. That's what we do.
Yeah.
But staying with kind of so-so movies. I wanted to mention this because I enjoyed it more than I thought I was, but I wanted to point one thing out to you because I know you don't really give a shit. So recently, the new
Red One, is this Red One?
Dwayne Johnson movie came out.
Yeah.
Which is called Red One, which we're watching. I'm watching Christmas movies with my kids all month, to punish them, and so we watched was it Griswold the Christmas Vacation last year?
Oh, that's great.
Or was the week before
National
that?
Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Yeah. Which honestly, we watched it with my father-in-law, and I don't know if he's ever seen this. He laughed like a bastard about that. He really enjoyed it.
I'll tell you what, that movie has a weird blind spot for a lot of people.
You know what it is? The scene that gets
really
me every time.
Yeah,
it's the sled. I don't know why, but for some reason, that whole sled sequence, I always laugh like a little kid when I see that part. Like, I don't know why. I just like it.
What's my favorite scene in that whole movie?
That and Shitter is Full. I mean, that scene is like it burned into my memory.
I think for me, it's when they're saying grace, when they're in the thing and the old woman hears the squirrel and says,
like, "What's that noise?"
And the husband says, "You couldn't hear a dump truck driving through a nitroglycerin plant." Like, that delivery is so great. It's just, the nice part about that movie is there's lots of little jokes.
And what's funny?
Really highlighted.
That woman, the wife, that is the voice of Betty Boop. Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Who actually revoiced it for Who Framed Roger Rabbit? She did the voice of Betty Boop when she shows up in that movie. Yep, they got her back for it.
So we're watching Christmas movies, and the thing is, my kids are getting into that teenage now where it's hard to get them to watch.
You got to watch Scrooged. Have you watched?
Okay,
Scrooged
so I want to watch Scrooged.
Yeah.
But my wife wants them to see the actual, like, a more pure version of
Okay, then
Christmas
watch the
Carol.
Muppets Christmas Carol.
She tried, and they walked out on her. So here's the thing, right? So,
no,
hold on. Yeah, I know. So every Saturday night I watch movies. We all watch a movie together, and usually it's my effort to try and push the kids to watch something they normally wouldn't watch, right? And then Sunday night we record usually. So my wife takes it as an opportunity to try to show them some of the cheesier or more kiddish movies from their youth that they may have missed. It's kind of more of like an educational historical thing, right? So like one time they watch Wizard of Oz, shit like that, right? Tonight I think they're watching Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, which I told the kids, they have to watch because I love that movie. But she tried to show them the Muppet Christmas Carol, and they staged a revolt, and they were like, "No, we don't need to watch TV tonight," and they just fucked off. And I had to sit them down and be like, "Hey, if your mom puts a movie on, you're gonna watch it for the historical value. This is an educational thing." But yeah, they walked out, so now we don't know.
Wow.
She was saying to me, she's like, "What are we gonna watch a serious one?" And I'm like, "No, we're not gonna sit through. I don't want to sit through the what's his name, Patrick Stewart Christmas Carol. It's just it's such a miserable story if you take it literally, right? So I want to watch Scrooge, and I'm pushing to kind of but she pushes back because the thing is, like, I'm a dude, and I want to watch the fucking 13th Warrior with the kids, but they're too young. But then she forgets things in movies, so she'll be like, "Let's watch this," and I'll be like, "You forgot the whole sex scene in that, didn't you?" So shit like that. So we were trying to watch Christmas movies. And we watched, like I said, the Griswold Christmas. We watched something else before. I can't remember. My wife was pushing for Die Hard, and I was like very close. And then she went and read like the report on it. There's a website, and she was like, "No, we're not watching that. We're not watching that." And I'm like, "Okay, that's fine." So anyway, this is how we arrived at Red One, because my daughter loves The Rock. I mean, everybody loves The Rock to some extent. And I like Santa Claus movies. I have a soft spot for Santa Claus movies because I like the myth of Santa Claus. It's a really neat idea. And I like the way that it's transformed, that it's not religious anymore. It's become kind of this like it's almost become this weird Viking thing. Did you ever see the what was it with David Harbour? That's Silent Night. That's the horror movie. What's the one he did?
Yeah. Oh, what is it? Yes, I know the one you're talking about. I haven't seen it, but I've heard it's good.
Yeah, David Harbour has a really great Christmas movie where he plays Santa Claus, and that shit is so gory and ridiculous, and it's like, but it's funny, and it's this idea of like this Viking who ended up becoming this thing and the magic of it, but he's also just given up on people, and it's good. I enjoy it. So in this movie, in Red One, they've got was the guy who plays Jay Jameson? What's his name?
J.K. Simmons.
J.K. Simmons, yeah, J.K. Simmons, who oddly makes a great Santa Claus. I like they really play up the fact that
he doesn't make a great Baldur's Gate villain. I can tell you that.
No, he doesn't. But he plays it. But you know what? He's almost doing the same voice. Great as Santa Claus. And I like the stuff that they thought about. But I mean, the review of the movie is it gets into a lot weirder territory than I expected them to. Where like they don't just get into the fact that Santa Claus is real. They get into the fact that all mythological creatures are real. Like there's a whole section of government that just deals with protecting and defending from mythological creatures, which honestly I kind of like that. Like they get into this weird so I enjoy that. But my overall review for the movie, very quickly, because that's not the big deal here, is that it's almost like if Marvel did a Santa Claus movie. Like that's what it feels like to me. It feels like a Marvel movie that just happens to be about Santa Claus, because they give the power set that they give The Rock and Santa Claus is Ant-Man technology. Santa Claus has Ant-Man technology coupled with like Batman skills. He's got an army of people doing all this stuff with him. I mean, it's very funny. But none of that is the reason I wanted to talk to you about it. What I wanted to talk about is at one point in the movie, they go essentially to like, I don't know, the underworld, but they basically go to an area that's very death metal because they need to talk to Krampus, right? And what struck me about this sequence, and I have a link for it because I want you to look. I've got a scene where they just show you the surroundings of it. Of course, now I've lost my...
I'm looking at it. I found it because there's a number of articles that pointed out how awesome the Krampus stuff is.
Oh yeah. So well, here I will send it to you anyway. That's the one I found. So
okay,
that's the Krampus fight scene. So one of the things I really liked is that when they get there is a little bit of CG, but all these monsters are practical effects.
That's what they said. That's what the articles have said, is that this is mostly practical.
Yeah, other than Krampus's tail, Krampus looks to be mostly practical effects, and he looks fucking awesome. He is quite possibly he upstaged The Rock. He is, to me, the best part of the movie. To the point of which they knew it, because at the end, he shows up and saves The Rock. He's the reason that they save Christmas, because they get to the end and they're fighting essentially like a giant troll, and The Rock and not Captain America get the shit kicked out of them. And at the last minute, fucking Krampus shows up with his super death metal firebolt sled and shoots the shit out of this thing. And there's so much about his character that kind of reminds me of Hellboy, the way that not the comic character, but the way that oh my god, names escape me tonight.
Chris Evans?
No. Hellboy, the way that who was the guy who did the movie with Hellboy?
Harbour, David Harbour. Sorry, David Harbour.
No, not the Harbour version. The
Ron Perlman.
Ron Perlman. It reminds me a lot of the Ron Perlman Hellboy, the way this guy plays it. I don't know who plays him. I didn't look it up because
I didn't recognize the name, so I don't know.
But he is quite excellent, and the movie knew that he was excellent, which is why they brought him back. But the sequence where they actually go to his hall, like I said, all the monsters look practical. There's like a weird bird guy with wing arms, and you look at him, you're like, yeah, that's mostly practical. And outside of Krampus's tail again, he's mostly practical. And
it's a Game of Thrones guy. That's why.
Which one? Oh, is it really?
Krampus is a Game of Thrones guy. He was also in...
Oh, what's the name?
He's Tormund Giantsbane? He's one of Jon Snow's people.
Okay. No, I don't know him.
He was also in The Witcher as a
giant
beardy man.
Beardy
he's
man.
Been in several things.
Wow, I wonder if
he was in Fate of the Furious, apparently. Okay.
I wonder if he just plays like a really big guy and everything.
His face does look familiar to me. It's weird.
He's great in it. And the thing is, like, I wanted to point this sequence out to you because most of the movie, I mean, most of the movie is a Christmas movie, so it's like sappy and rekindle a relationship with your family.
I know who this guy is. I know who
is
most people know this guy is. This guy played the Scotsman in the Scots like grass commercials. I knew this guy. There are these commercials, which are actually pretty funny, which is Scott for Scots, and he's playing a Scottish guy, but he's like this very rugged, tough guy, and he'll show up and be like, your lawn needs treatment. Use Scott's turf builder. Like he's doing the whole accent and everything, and it's just normal people, but he's this big. You should watch it because he is very funny because he looks so threatening, and yet he's just trying to help them.
He's just trying to fix your lawn.
Yeah, the best one is the guy who thinks he's talking about STDs because he's in like a doctor's coat, and he shows up and he says, I think we got some problems down there. And the guy's like, what? He's like, yeah, you better get some treatment right away. And he's like, no, everything's fine. And he's like, look, there's grass rot. And he's like, oh, the lawn. He's like, yeah. And he takes out of the doctor's bag this huge like turf builder bag. It's great. It's a funny commercial. And they were in between baseball games all the time. That's why I kept saying, yeah, he did all those. I knew this guy's face because he's the Scots for Scots guy.
He's very good in it as Krampus, and they use Krampus very well. And like I said, just that sequence when they get there, it looks different than the rest of the movie. Because like other parts of the movie, they fight snowman people, and it's very CG. I mean, it doesn't look necessarily horrible, but it's like snowman people. They're fighting people in green suits, right? But when they walk into that hall and you see all these monster people, all these like kind of demons and stuff like that, there's such a variety, and they all look good. They all look realistic. They all have a I would say, oh, I know who this guy is.
Yes. Once you see his face,
yeah.
you know who
this
he
is the guy. This is the guy that desperately wants to fuck Brianna Tarth. Oh
sure.
yeah,
that part I don't know. I just know who the guy is.
In Game of Thrones, you know who Brianna Tarth is, right? The big.
I don't know
the big
anything about Game of. I know.
Okay,
nothing.
you know Gwendolyn Christie, right?
Oh, is that her?
Yeah, Gwendolyn Christie in Game of Thrones plays
okay.
Brianna Tarth, and she basically they take her, she's thickened up, she's in armor, and she's not wearing any makeup, and she's just a fucking badass, right? And she's this woman who's just become this fucking badass knight, and she's huge, right? So at one point or another, she shows up in Jon Snow's place, and when she shows up, this guy sees her, and he's just like, oh, and there's actually a great gif of him seeing her for the first time and the look of joy and interest on his face, right? So yes, I know who this guy is now. That makes total sense. And he's very good at Krampus. So I wanted to share that with people. If you want to see a really funny, well done sequence, even if you don't want to watch the whole movie, the Krampus sequence is actually quite worth it. And the thing is that it's The Rock, so they put the money into it. Like this is there's no skimping on this. My wife enjoyed it because Chris Evans got to use his like actual Boston accent, which is quite funny. And I actually thought that it was a better Christmas movie. Like of all the Christmas, I'm not against adding this to kind of my roster of Christmas movies to watch every year. But it is very Marvel. Marvel movies presents Santa Claus because like especially like when he's actually handing presents out at one point, he's got a fucking shrink ray and he's like making the gifts really big and making them really small, and I mean, yeah, like a lot of Ant-Man technology in this movie. So, but I just thought that sequence looked really great and that you might have a bit of enjoyment with that. And some of it's actually really like, if you look at the monsters in the background, some of them are actually like pretty horrific looking to some degree.
No, one of the things I read right away was that's the best thing in the movie. That really the rest of it is kind of throwaway, but unless you're a kid.
Well, yeah,
but
my kids loved it.
The Krampus stuff is anybody would like that type of thing.
Honestly, the slap fight between him and The Rock is fantastic. Because Krampus has got, fucking massive hands because he's this giant demon. Yeah. So, like, he basically smacks the shit out of The Rock. And that's good. You know what? It's been a while since we had a movie where The Rock, like, actively got the shit kicked out of him. So, anyway, yeah, I wanted to quickly review that. It doesn't deserve, like, a full review because it's kind of, like you said, it is a throwaway Christmas movie. But that part was really good. And if I found out that they were doing, like, another movie that gets heavily into, like, Krampus, you know what? I'd show up to see it as long as they stick with these practical effects. You know, and that's the thing is that I mean, CG is supposed to be cheaper, right? Is that what it is? CG is cheaper, and they can do it faster, so they don't have to build everything.
Yes.
Is that
Well,
what the story is?
generally, what is done is you see this is a thing that you can identify, and there's a lot of good YouTube videos that show this. There's templates they use, so you'll see a lot of common things because basically they can very quickly previs things in CG. Like if there's a big battle, they'll be like, well, we're going to use this scene from Marvel Infinity War. We're going to use this and we're going to swap the characters out. So we'll have the same camera rotation, blah, blah, blah. It's all the same. Nobody's going to notice because we'll put some, fizzly popcorn stuff in the front and then whatever, and nobody will notice it. But there's a lot of similarity. So they have these kind of determined shots. So in that way, it's generally cheaper. It also depends how it's utilized, because if it's at night, it's definitely cheaper because you can hide a lot more. Whereas if you have to do a scene in the day, well, then it's probably not, because you have to render a lot more because people can see a lot more. But generally, it is seen as the three big things about it are, one, it's faster. You don't have to set up as much stuff. You don't have to worry about blowing a shot. You don't have to, architect all the sets, have everybody on the scene, whatever. If it's all just CG, you just do it in a computer. So even if it takes the same amount of time and the same amount, well, it generally won't take as much time, and even if the money is a little more, you've saved on time. So time is money. There's no need for the actors to necessarily be there because you can do it all in CG, right? I mean, you don't really need the people. And I think for a while, and this is true to some extent, it allows some scenes to be done that could never be done practically. You really could not safely throw a person through a building and have the whole building collapse on top of them in any believable way without, having to, again, do a bunch of cutting and editing, whereas you could do it in one seamless shot. Okay, Superman gets thrown into a building, the building collapses on him, and the camera never cuts. Well, that's because there's no person there, right? To do that in reality, you'd have to throw a person through a very close-up shot of a brick wall, cut to the building collapsing, and then cut to him in the bricks, because you couldn't do it one shot, because the person would be dead. So, it just depends how you look at it. I have seen both arguments for it being cheaper and better and against. So,
well, I don't mind them using it at times, but I always prefer practical effects because they just feel more real. And finding the way to blend those two sequences together, those two elements together, is I think the way you get to really good movie. Because like Iron Man did it really well, where like I know they built that suit. And I can't always tell in that movie, especially in the first one, I know when he's gone full CG, but like when he's kind of a mix of CG and practical suit, I can't always tell where it ends. And it actually makes the CG look almost better because I'm having trouble figuring out what's real and what isn't. I mean, they got really floaty with the helmet later on.
Well, this is true of everything. If the special effects are done well enough, you can't tell, or it becomes tough to tell. And the problem, I think, with CG in many cases is they tend to cheap out on it, or they don't really consider whether it looks good or not. So the trick with many things when it comes to CG, if you're going to talk about big kind of action sequences or specific special effects, is, as you said, there's a floatiness to it. And that generally is because, I don't know. Look, I'm not a director. I don't work in movies. But from my understanding, you early on make a decision. You kind of have to. Are we doing this practically? Or are we doing this CG-wise, right? You can't just flip that on a dime. Now, they did in the case of the Thing prequel. For some reason, they just went to CG, and it universally was seen as worse, even though they'd done a lot of practical effects. So I think in that case, you can go to CG late, but you can't go the other way. So if you're into it and everything's floaty, you can't suddenly add 3 months to the shooting schedule and start building everything. You're kind of stuck unless you're going to hire an effects team and try to do pickup shots in between where you just don't have the actors anymore. I mean, a lot of actors have contracts that are specific spans. So all this stuff has to be worked out. And so, and I think honestly some directors don't care. Because I think some audiences don't care.
Well, here's the thing. This is the whole, what is it? Oh, Jesus Christ, I forgot the phrase for it. the disbelief. God,
Suspension of disbelief.
Suspension of disbelief. Yeah, this is the suspension of disbelief. If the story is good enough, then you will let a lot of elements go. And we've gone back to this many times. If the writing is good, if the story is good, then you know what? You're going to excuse a lot of floatiness because it's all there to move the story along. That's why, you can watch a B movie that they paid nothing for it and still be like, Jesus Christ, this is really good. Because if the story's good, it doesn't matter how little they spent on it. The seeds of kind of epicness are there. You know what I mean? Theoretically.
It's like when Indiana Jones swings on his whip off of things where you know that the whip would just come off, or that or that the thing would collapse under the weight of a human being, and probably the best example for one that is all practical really is when Luke and Leia swing off of the sand skiff in Jabba's sand barge. What is that rope attached to? If you look at the angle, it doesn't make any sense. They're not swinging. If it's attached to the sand barge, guess what? They swing off and swing right back and hit into the side.
But the key thing is that it doesn't matter.
That's right. So, and that's what you're talking about. So it's not as if, because this is one thing where people, we're not going to pretend that practical effects don't have errors. They
no, absolutely.
Do. But as you said, and this is something where with a lot of CG movies, I think especially younger audiences, they don't care if it doesn't quite look like the physics are right. They're just kind of looking for a good time. Well, that's fine. Michael Bay's not making deep psychological, intellectual deliberations on the nature of human beings. He just wants to blow things up. And so if that's what you're going for, you're going to get that. And that's the same thing with something like, Jurassic World Dominion or whatever. A lot of people lamented the fact that it's mostly, if not entirely, CG dinosaurs. Okay, guys, this is not a movie that cares. It's just a bunch of dino mayhem. So whatever, if that makes them move faster and fly and transmogrify into combo dinos.
And the thing is that people want sequels now to come out like right away. And if you want that speed, and my kids are part of this now, where my kids will be like, "Is there a sequel?" And I'll be like, "Yeah, they're working on it." And they'll be like, and then a week later, my daughter will be like, "Is it out?" I'll be like, hey, "Dude," I was like, "It's gonna take a year or more." I was like, "Be happy for that," because it used to take many years. There used to be like 4 to 5 years between a movie and a sequel.
Yeah.
Whereas now they have it out next year. I mean, the speed to which movies are coming out now is insane. But
it used to be at least
CG
2
makes
years,
it easy. Yeah.
Before you would get a sequel, because what was Star Wars was 77, I want to say, and then Empire was 80. So wait, Star Wars, 77 is when it was released, and Empire was 8. That's 3 years.
Yep, there you go.
Can you imagine 3 years for a sequel now?
And that was like that was going quick. They wanted that movie out as fast as they could.
Oh yeah,
because the first one was so big, So it's you can never have everything, I guess nor should you, I suppose.
No, there's a value in waiting. There is.
I do like that there are directors out there that try to mix the practical and the CG and do a good job of it. Peter Jackson, for all the CG he did in the Lord of the Rings movies, there's a lot of practical in that movie. And it's amazing because he figured out a way to layer them in such a way that made the movie come out pretty strong.
Well, I think that in most cases what he did was he used CG where it was necessary, and he did it in a way where, Lord of the Rings in some ways is a minor miracle in that for somebody who was handed a massive property, they really, the producers, whoever it was that made these decisions, really from all the background stuff I've seen, all the extras and everything, I'm not going to say that there weren't any hiccups and there weren't any disagreements or anything like that. No movie production has a complete lack of those from what I understand. But he was largely given a lot of trust, and he said, this is the way we have to do this. I want this group to make all the weapons and inscribe every weapon in a way that's unique to the person wielding it. Now, that's not something you see a lot.
No.
At all.
Definitely
So,
not. Definitely not in the new series.
yeah, and again, to just emphasize, from somebody who only 5-10 years earlier was making splatter films.
Yeah, you know,
on the
actually,
cheap.
Kate Blanchett, when they asked her, "Oh, you must have made a lot of money making Lord of the Rings," and she was like, "No, I made very little." She goes, and they said, "Why did you do it?" And she said, "I really wanted to work with the director who made was it Dead Alive?" Because that's what it was called,
I have no
right?
trouble believing that. Yeah,
No,
Dead Alive.
Yeah, Dead Alive. Yeah, and I'm like, kind of like, yeah, you know what? You found out that this crazy director was doing some huge epic thing, and you heard something about the production, and you were like, you know what? Let's try this out. They're filming the whole thing.
This is the same thing with David Lynch. Is a lot of people. I've seen interviews with some of the big names, and they say, "Well, what do you think the movie's about?" And the person will say, "I don't know what any of these movies are about, but it's great working with him, so I really don't care. I trust him to make what he wants to make, and I want to work with people who seem to be good to work with." And I think Peter Jackson.
And I'll be there for it. Yeah.
Peter Jackson seems to be of that type, where he's not one of these directors who's screaming and losing his temper and going crazy or completely aloof and disconnected. And so people are going to come into that. Or because, you made a movie that... But even that, there's even limits to that because James Cameron doesn't always have the same actors. And I think there's a reason for that.
Oh, I've heard he's
miserable.
He's a bitch to work with. But it's because he's very specific about his vision.
Yeah, and
listen,
he
has the right to be, and if people don't want to work with him, they won't work with him.
But that's what I'm getting at. Whereas other directors who seem to be more good-natured and collaborative, they always work with the same people. You always see these people showing up, and they're always happy to show up in whatever that person is doing. And I think that tells me something. And I have a hunch that's a lot of the reason that the Peter Jackson thing, it's not just that people saw Brain Dead or Dead Alive and were like, hey, splatter. It's also that I'm sure, and it seems that he has a reputation where, he's good to work with. So it helps. I mean, and the alternative to that is give me a huge paycheck. So if you're miserable, as long as you pay me enough, whatever, I'll put up with it.
I think that's a few people, yes.
Yeah.
So that's all I got for you.
I speaking of which, because I have no idea what Ridley Scott is actually like to work with. I've never read anything that tells me anything, but I didn't even realize Gladiator 2 came out. Did you know it was out?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
You haven't seen it though.
No.
It's actually got okay reviews. I'm somewhat baffled by.
So he's
I don't know anything about it.
The main guy. So from what I understand, the main guy in the arena is the son of the woman that Russell Crowe's character was, I think
that's who he's supposed to be.
Yeah. So you know how Joaquin Phoenix, his sister. So Joaquin Phoenix is the emperor, and then there's his sister, and she has her child.
Yeah, and he's
right.
after her.
So when Joaquin Phoenix dies, from what I understand, the sister goes into hiding with the son, or leaves, something like that. So he's supposed to be that child. And then a lot of what's going on is basically Denzel Washington maneuvering things and behind the scenes.
Interesting.
I mean, they did something different. That's what I've read. They did something different. They said Denzel Washington's very good. Everyone looks like they're having an interesting time. No one looks like they're phoning it in necessarily. So when it is cheaper and or streaming, I'll watch it. But Ridley Scott is no longer on that list of movies that I will just watch. I wait with him.
So Connie Nielsen is the mother, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
And was she the mother in Gladiator? Was it the same woman? Did they bring back the same woman?
It might be, yeah.
What? No, it doesn't look like, because I don't. No, yes, you're right. Holy shit. Yeah. Okay, see that's a plus. That's great. They brought her back. Huh. Wow.
So. Yeah,
I just happened to see like an hour ago. I saw something where somebody mentioned it, and I was like, "Oh, that's out." Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have any necessarily big
the lead guy was on SNL, and they were making fun of it in SNL, and I was like, "Cool, sounds like fun."
It's got a 7 as far as its rating, so that's not terrible. I mean, I really just expected it to disappear into nothingness.
Listen, I thought Red 1 was gonna be a big piece of shit. but it turned out
once
to
I
be
knew
an
it was aimed
entertaining.
towards kids, I immediately offset a lot of the reviews I saw because I'm like, okay, guys, you're not kids, so
Yeah, I know.
yeah, you're not. You can't judge that as an adult film. Kids movies just don't have the same requirements. It's not to say they should be bad, but or that you just excuse a terrible kids movie. There are terrible kids movies, but
Yes, there are.
you can't judge them the same way. I mean, your kids liked it, right? Your kids liked it.
Oh, my kids loved it, but they liked The Rock.
Yeah.
The Rock appeals to
Well,
them.
okay,
Listen,
well, that's what I'm saying.
we watched.
Well, he's a giant. He's a big action figure. Of course, they like him.
Yeah, but Captain America's in it too, and Chris Evans is being funny. And for the longest time, Chris Evans has had to play like the upstanding, Captain America type, and he's finally back playing the
they
wise
finally
ass
started
that-
chipping away at that with what do you call it? Knives Out was where he really started. To be
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
no,
So
I can be a
he's
scumbag too.
Yeah, he's back to playing a wise ass. He's having a good time at it, and they like that. They like the wise asses, and it's like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that appeals to you. So yeah. Like I said, I want them to do one that's just with Krampus as the lead. I'll watch a movie with Krampus as the lead.
Sure, why not?
Or Hellboy and Krampus. They'll do that. That'd be fun. I won't.
Hellboy,
I won't
I
get
mean,
what I want. Yeah.
It does seem like a natural film to have Hellboy and Krampus in the same movie at this point.
You know what? Hellboy must have met Krampus at some point. I'm sure in the comics, at some point, Hellboy and Krampus bumped into each other.
I could see a team up movie between them so easily.
Oh, team up movie. Hold on.
Well, yeah, I mean, because Hellboy technically is a villain. I mean, people forget that, but technically he's a villain.
Who's gone good, yeah.
Exactly. So you could do the same thing with Krampus, because that's kind of what they do in Red One, right? Isn't he Santa's brother, and they just he's Santa's Santa's adopted brother, and so they were working together in the beginning, and then Krampus became involved, got really caught up with the naughty list and the fact that naughty people should be punished, and then eventually he hooked up with the witch of the Winter Witch, and between the two of them, they really wanted to basically punish children. Wasn't enough that you didn't get presents; they wanted you to be punished. And then Santa Claus basically put a stop to it all, and they went their separate ways. So Santa and Krampus haven't spoken to each other in a very long time. But yes, and see, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with Krampus. Maybe it should be more than you just don't get.
Oh no,
there should be retribution.
Yeah, it is interesting. And yes, Hellboy has had dealings with Krampus. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But see, the two of them in a movie together would be a natural fit.
Oh yeah, they'd be perfect.
Right.
Especially this version. This version of Krampus and Hellboy would turn into a fucking buddy film.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So maybe the Winter Witch actually goes crazy and wants to just start killing children, and Krampus is like, all right, wait a minute.
That's essentially the plot of the movie. The Winter Witch goes crazy. Yeah. And she
finds
finds a way to basically try. She wants to hijack Christmas and use it to punish everybody.
Okay, yeah. So, right, Hellboy shows up and he's heard that Krampus is killing children. He shows up and Krampus is like, no. I'm not killing anybody. Me and her were working together, and she went off the deep end, and I just went into hiding because I thought she was going to kill me. But if you want to help me take her down, let's go get her. And then it's like, bad boys in hell, just and they're just running along, But that's an easy movie for me to envision, like the two of them commiserating over the fact that they, get blamed for a lot of things, or people look at them and assume something.
Yeah.
Right? It's
yeah. I mean, and like I said, and because the effects are as good as the way Hellboy looked, it's very natural.
Yeah.
I think it would be a good. It would be fun.
I can envision it very easily.
Yeah.
We'll never get it, but I can envision it.
No, we never will, but it'd be funny. Yeah. I mean, plus Ron Perlman is older now.
Well, okay, but as I pointed out in the other movie,
honestly,
you don't just need him.
A David Harbour Hellboy, or even what? Fuck that, the new guy, the guy that they just used.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
I've watched a lot of clips from that movie now, and I think that he does a fine Hellboy.
I agree.
So that guy, we'll use him. Yeah.
I'd be okay with that.
What seems to annoy everybody about that Hellboy movie, now that I've read more about it, is the fact that it's too much like the comic.
yeah, right? So, okay, I don't know what you people want. I don't know what you want. Too much like the comic. Okay.
No, what people want is Del Toro. They want the Del Toro Hellboy, and that's sad that the Del Toro Hellboy has superseded, the comic.
Yeah, I don't want to see. I don't think just wanting one vision of something is good. So,
There you go.
You know, diversity's fun.
Hey, you know me. I love all the versions of Ghost in the Shell.
As do well, I can't say all of them. I didn't like that.
I don't like. I didn't watch the last one, so I have nothing to say about it.
I mean, it's not bad, but it's or maybe it was the one before. One of them is not good. I won't say it's bad.
Is it Rise? No, what was it called?
Maybe it was that one. Hold on, I have to look. There's so many now. Let's see which one are we talking about this time? Hold on. Okay, let's see. We've got. Oh wait, that's the movie. I need the. Oh my God! All right, let's see. Here we go. Here you got to go from the original, and then you got to look for adaptations or whatever they call it, other related media. Here it is. Okay, holy shit! Wow. All right, animated series, standalone complex, great. Okay, Arise is the one I think is not good. SAC 2045 is okay.
Okay,
I'll
have to watch that one at some point.
Yeah, that's the one that's basically CG. It's CG, cell shady, I guess you'd call it.
Uh-huh.
It's not going to supersede standalone complex. That's the high water mark. But I thought Arise was a big letdown, mostly because I think it was 4 parts, I want to say. I'm trying to remember how many parts. It was way too long. It was, I'm sorry. It was 5 parts. It probably should have been 3. Although I still don't think that's enough because I didn't like the designs. I just thought it was probably rushed. I'll put it like that. I think it was probably rushed through, and so they just didn't really do much with it. It's not awful. I don't think any Ghost in the Shell thing I've ever seen has been awful. There's always interesting parts, but as a whole, I think Arise was largely a letdown. I've never rewatched it.
Is it that when you get a really good version of something, it then draws attention to what to not being as good as that really good version? It's kind of like when Ant-Man came out. Ant-Man was a so-so movie, but it was a so-so movie for a Marvel movie, which was still more enjoyable than a lot of shit I'd watched. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I don't disagree. There's degrees to it because I think with standalone complex, I definitely think the Laughing Man run is a far better one than the individual. 11,
Individual 11,
yeah. But I still really like Individual 11. I still rewatch it because there are great episodes in there.
I hate to say this, but I think for me, the Laughing it goes Laughing Man. Oh shit, this is tough. I like the Laughing Man story the most, and then it goes the original anime, and then it goes Innocence. For me, that's the top of it for me because I mean, not animation wise, but story wise. I love that whole season 1. It's the Laughing Man.
Well, I mean, you're talking about the Laughing Man episodes. No.
I mean in general, season 1 for me is probably story wise the best Ghost in the Shell for me.
I wouldn't say I need to rewatch every episode from that first season. Like the one with the guys, the tank is like, okay, I can skip that. But the Laughing Man episodes, I do agree. That is the most pure adaptation of what the comics were. I find that is the best story because there's really haunting episodes in some of those. That dude, really good.
when he hacks Bato's eyes for the first time, and Bato can't see him, and the guy's right there, and Bato's fucking freaking the fuck out.
Or when Togus is in that hospital with the kids, and it's set up like a horror movie.
Yeah,
that is the best narrative. As far as I think covers everything that series covers well. I agree with you. It's not as well animated as the movies, obviously.
Yeah.
And then I would actually put the second movie before the first movie. I think the second one, because it's so much about Bato and the vacuum of losing Kusanagi and how she's still around, like what happened after. Yeah. And I think the animation, even though the CG gets a little heavy at times, but I like his kind of him and Togus' relationship is really good in that, and I like them a lot. But also just, it's just an interesting character from where the first movie presented Bato largely as the muscle who cared about Kusanagi. Like I like him in the first one. But the second one is really his movie. And frankly, I like him better than the Major. I like him the best. I like him, Togusa, and then the Major. Those are my top 3 characters. So a whole movie
Whereas
around him,
I really
and there's
like,
a dog.
I really
right.
like all the rest of the crew that you never really get to meet in the
Well,
movies.
okay, let's just put a caveat here. I'd be completely into a Saito movie. Saito is the best character, but they really barely do it. Like, he's like God in Navy SEALs, right? They do put him in that position, which I like. Like, that Hawkeye thing is fucking amazing. I love it. And he does he does have good episodes in the standalone complexes too. I do like the episodes where he gets to do things. But I would not mind I wouldn't mind a new series, a standalone complex series where every episode is one for each member of the team, and it's only them. One story about that character, where everybody else is secondary.
Interesting.
I would
watch
that.
it because I actually do like all the characters.
I do too, but you don't get a lot of them. Like even who's the hacker? What's his name? Oh, what's the hacker's name?
Ishikawa? Not Ishikawa.
Yes, Ishikawa. I always think it starts. Yeah, no, you're right. Ishikawa. Ishikawa would be. There's lots of. We really get the core three, which is the Major, Bateau, and Togusa. Like Togusa stuff with his family and all that, like the one where the people are hacking the eyes, all that. You get a lot of them, but you don't really get much of the other ones. They get little stuff here and there. And then there was one that the knife guy. I never remember his name. The knife guy. There's Boma and the knife guy. No,
the knife guy who has the episode where the woman clones him.
Yes, that's a great episode.
And that is probably one of the most fucked up episodes.
Isn't it? It's a wonderful. I can't remember the guy's name.
Ghost in the Shell, because you don't, and you get to the end of the episode and you don't know if you've got the original or the copy.
Right.
And they just have to accept it for what it is.
Yeah.
Like,
no, I think it's great.
That's very fucked up.
And that's what I mean about I would love to see a new series where they did one episode on each person. Because they kind of did it to some degree with the other ones. And I would include Aramaki, who we get pieces of. We get pieces of his history. But I want to see one whole episode, like an hour-long episode, on each person. I mean, they're never going to do that. But
no.
That's,
well, hey, listen. All it takes is time and running out of ideas, and they might.
Paz? Is that Paz? I think Paz is the guy.
The big bald guy with the eyes?
No, that's Boma. Boma's the big guy.
Okay.
The big bald guy is Boma, and his partner, I think, is Paz. Yes, that's because he's the double. Yeah, one Paz is stabbed through the eye and killed. That's him. Yeah, I always forget his name, but I always think of him as like, if it was live action, he'd be Bill Paxton. I think of him as the Bill Paxton of the whole team, like with the hair back and like the knife. I always he's like Hudson of the group. Except silent, but yeah. Bowman is the big
I put him. I put a much more very young Don Johnson there because he's got the shirt open all the time. I'm fine with that.
No, you know what? Yeah. That's a better call. You're right. That's better.
He's like a really young Don Johnson the way they play him.
That's a much better. And
that's what I mean. That's season 1, right? Of that episode with the double, or is that season 2?
I want to say that's season 2, but I don't remember
honestly,
because they all mix together.
That episode doesn't stand on its own because you kind of need everything going on for it to make sense. But this idea that the team just has to accept the fact that whoever walks away from this fight, it's him. Because
that is the strongest part of it, is that they do that and they just stick with it.
Yeah,
because they could have given it away one way or another, or they could have
and they never do
the original.
Yeah, they never do. They say, "Fuck it, that's what it is."
It's good.
So
there's there are many excellent episodes in the standalone stuff, like the Jungle Cruise one. That's a great Bateau story with the guy who's hacking into people as he's skinning them, so they have to see it.
Yeah.
That is, you want to talk about colossally fucked up.
Yeah,
right,
but that's what I mean. Like, all the versions are so good. So it's having the ability to accept the fact that there can be many forms of something, and that it's all enjoyable. Listen, I put I would rather watch the Scarlett Johansson movie than Arise.
Oh, I would too. Yeah.
Like, I mean, they changed it, but they changed it in interesting ways. The biggest problem with that movie is that it's Scarlett Johansson. But honestly, I like Scarlett Johansson. She's easy on the eyes, and I accept the fact that she was the money. So it is what it is.
No, I don't even have a problem with her. I think she's fine in the role. My biggest problem is just the idea that she's supposed to be a Japanese woman. Like I just
Yeah, exactly.
I just
Yeah.
cut that. I got to keep looking.
It kind of,
See,
you
there's
know what?
gotta be a fan
It
edit.
always kind of confused me that they didn't do the normal American thing, which is like move it all to New York or something like that. 'Cause
Well,
remember when they were going to do
have
Akira?
a hunch. No, I have a hunch. You're right about the money thing. I think that what happened was that they were, if I had to guess, because that is generally the cheap way to do it. It's just, okay, we Americanize it. Like they were going to do with Akira. Oh,
Yeah.
please, never let Akira be made. Please, never let Akira be made. But anyway,
Well, not like
so
that.
probably
anyway, yeah.
what happened was maybe the deal was, and maybe even, I don't know anything about how the movie got made. Since it was considered a failure, we get none of the background. That's just how it works. Unless it's a colossal, nuclear bomb of everybody hating everything. You generally don't find out the details like you do with successful movies. You're not going to get an 8-disc version like Lord of the Rings that shows you hours of behind the scenes on things that are considered failures. It's just how it is. So my suspicion would be that they probably wanted a Japanese lead. And at some point they said, all right, you can have everybody, but the lead has to be a ScarJo. We have to have
big.
that hook.
Yeah.
And they said, fine. Well, as long as we can have everybody else, whatever. And then they, bizarrely, they left in the background. Whereas they should have just made her an American major. What about, this is the thing that is baffling. If she wasn't Monoko Kusanagi, and she was an American name, Jane Fonda, whatever, would it change anything?
Oh, interesting. I have an interesting little thing here for you.
All right, go ahead.
About it being, how, so you said like, Ghost in the Shell was a flop, the movie, right?
It was considered a failure.
It was considered a flop. And people said, why was this movie a flop? And there's a really interesting theory that this person posted, which is the idea that The Matrix killed Ghost in the Shell. That there are so many elements of The Matrix that are taken from Ghost in the Shell. And this is what we've always said about The Matrix. I enjoy The Matrix movies, but The Matrix movies, they are drawn on a whole world of anime and action movies, like from when we were younger, right? And when we watch those movies, we know the places that these elements are being pulled from. One of them is Ghost in the Shell. And so the idea of the head jack and cyberspace and all this shit, right? Which, I mean, at that point, Neuromancer had already created, but either way, visually, by the time Ghost in the Shell came out as a movie, nothing they were doing was really that groundbreaking. Other than the fact that, I mean, it looks fantastic, but it's not groundbreaking. It's doing stuff that's been done before, maybe not as good, but it's doing stuff that's been done before. And one of the main culprits is the fact that The Matrix did it. The Matrix did head jacks. The Matrix did the robotics. The Matrix did all these elements that they carried forward so that when you get to the Ghost in the Shell movie, you're not as blown away because you've seen this before. And this is and this does happen where you have the original and then one of the derivatives of the original or someone who uses elements from there then gets made into a movie, and people are like, that's amazing, and then they're like, oh, well, that was based off this, we should make that into a movie as well. And then when that comes out and it just feels like the original becomes a derivative because it didn't come out sooner. It's an interesting theory.
Okay, let's start with this.
Yeah.
I can't say for sure that's wrong. I don't know.
Oh, it's just a theory.
No, but
yeah,
it doesn't feel like that's correct because I think the movie's biggest problems, there's really two of them in my mind.
Okay.
And not even the story element with the Japanese. Not that's my biggest problem with it.
Yeah, outside
personally.
of that, yeah.
Yeah, but for a general audience, I don't think a general audience even clocks that. And in fact, there was at least a couple videos I saw where they were asking Japanese people if they cared, and they all said no. Nobody cares. Even the creator didn't care. So that, I think, is a manifested problem, even though I would
honestly,
say...
I think it was a bigger problem in the U.S. than it was in Japan.
I agree.
Yeah.
But I think that outside of that, the core problems with the movie are, one, the main villain is nothing. That main villain guy for a movie that is so beautifully and interestingly and creatively structured, he's
Which one?
just a bad corporate guy. The corporate guy.
Okay, the corporate guy. Yeah, because the other guy.
No, the other guy's great. The hacker, the actual hacker is fine. No, he's not the villain.
Android guy is
he's
fucking
not
awesome.
He's not the villain to me.
No,
he's not the villain.
Yeah, but that's the thing. You realize he's not the villain.
Right. Yes. Well, I'm talking about the real villain, the guy who gets shot and goes into the pool, whose name I can't even remember, who's remote controlling the spider tank.
Yeah.
That guy is a big wet bag of forgetfulness. I don't remember his name. I don't even remember anything about him.
He's just corporate villain.
That's it. So you have this fascinating hacker guy who isn't really the villain, but then you don't have a real good villain behind him. So it's just, it's a guy in a suit. That's one problem. So that's my one problem. And I think that the Scarlett Johansson thing, the misunderstanding there is that makes sense from an executive saying we need a sexy lead in the female role and one that Americans will know, because basically American box office until very, very recently, and it still really does, dominates any perception of a film. If it doesn't launch huge in the U.S., then it better be immense everywhere else. And outside of the U.S., do I think that international audiences care that much about Scarlett Johansson? I'm sorry to break this to everybody, but I don't think they do. I don't think she's not Meryl Streep in terms of being an actress, like somebody that everybody knows is really good. She's fine, but she's not an exceptional actress. She's perfectly capable.
I won't say because I have no idea, so I'm going to look it up.
What? Oh, whether it was a hit outside?
Is she big outside this country?
I mean, she's pretty, but I'm sorry, I don't accept that that's enough for a movie. And the movie outside of her was trying to be close to the intellectual kind of film about the nature of who I am and this body, blah, blah, blah. It was trying to do that stuff. And the other thing is, you either have to, this is going to sound really strange when I say it, but I do think this. If you're going to Americanize the movie, then you better Americanize the whole movie. Meaning, nobody else in the cast except for Aramaki. Aramaki was known to Japanese audiences because Beat Takeshi is well known.
Yeah.
But the only really big American movie he's in that people might recognize is Johnny Mnemonic. Come on. Right? I mean.
Oh, no. They'll also know him from, what is it, this show, Castle? The game show where they basically.
Oh, Takeshi's Castle?
Takeshi's Castle, that's what, yeah.
Yeah, but come on. I don't think that's enough.
Listen, if you're looking for reference, that is one of them. Yes,
okay. Or MXC is what most Americans will probably know, not Takeshi's Castle, because it came over to Spike. The Spike Network is MXC, where they overdubbed everything.
Yes.
So, okay, fine. But what I'm saying is, the calculation was off to begin with, because American actress lead, well, if the rest of the cast is not in the same movie as she is, and she's trying to be in that movie, but the very stunt casting nature of her placement in it is a problem. Because, again, I don't dislike her, but I don't think she's a great actress. So the parts where she's like looking at her hand and contemplating what it is to be human, I'm like, okay, I sort of buy it, but.
Well, who would you put if you had to put in an actress in that role? Who would you put in?
If I
had to, if the studio came to you and they're like, "Motherfucker, you have to put in somebody from Hollywood."
From Hollywood.
Yeah.
Hold on. All right. When did that movie come out? 2017?
Oh, yeah. I think it's 2017.
All right. Let me look at the best known, because I don't even know. I have to think. All right. Let's take a look at, I have to look at modern actresses, because, I want to get the age. How old is she? I want to get the age.
Johansson?
Yeah.
She's
in her 30s in that, right?
She? Oh,
in that, wasn't she in her 30s?
I don't know. I don't know her age now.
All right, hold on. Let's see.
Hold on, I'll tell you.
All right, best actress
is 40. Oh my God, she's younger than both of us. She's 40.
No, I do that, but
yeah, she was
born
in
40
84.
Now?
Yeah, she's 40 now.
Okay, so if that was 2017, that's 8 years ago. So she would have been 32.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
All right. So so let me take a look. All right, who would I have? Because I want to get somebody who's about the same age. I don't want to, there's a bunch of dumb answers. Like Michelle Yeoh is the obvious answer, but she would have been too old at that point.
No,
even though I disagree with that, she wouldn't have been able to do it. Let's see. So far, I'm not seeing anybody for Hollywood yet that I would trust in that role. She'd probably be too young.
How old was Charlize Theron at that time?
Well, I was looking at Anya Taylor-Joy because I liked her a lot in Furiosa, but she'd be too young in that.
That's why I said Charlize Theron.
Oh, you know what? How old's Emily Blunt? She was the one that was in Die, Repeat, whatever, right?
Yeah. She would be young there, but I think she'd probably be good for it.
She was 41. There
you go.
That's who I'd pick. I like Emily Blunt. I think she's a good actress.
Let's see.
Plus, she's not American.
But she's not American. Oh yeah, make her British. That'd be even more funny.
No. Well, I'm sure she could do an American accent. She's done it. before.
I wonder if they just kept her British. Honestly, that almost would have worked. Because being British in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. That's interesting.
Eva Green. Oh, well, that's just a personal choice.
I know. Oh, she could have done it though.
That's just me.
She would have been that. But listen,
you know what?
Eva Green has an amazing ability to come off very strong and scary.
All right, how old is Eva Green? Evergreen, whatever. 44. You know what? She could have done it. She's 44. It's not that big a difference.
She really? Oh man.
Yeah. So you know what? I changed my vote. Well, there's two. There's two.
Eva Green. You know what? Hold on. Let's see. I want to see if anybody has mocked her up as Motoko. Because everything's been done, right?
Probably not. Actually, you make a good point. Yeah.
Listen, everything's been done, so I should be able to look this up and find it.
Yeah, you should. You should.
Let's see.
I'm just looking for anybody else that might be in the same.
What is this?
Kristen Ritter. That would be interesting, but she wouldn't be well known enough.
Hold on.
Juliette Lewis. What a psycho world that would be. But that wouldn't be a serious one.
What is this? Hold on a second.
Evan Rachel Wood.
No. I veto that one.
That's fine.
I don't know why, but it doesn't
That's
say.
Fine.
Yeah.
That's the only one out of those so far that you vetoed. So
Let's say this is about the remastering they did. Okay, but where does Ava Green tie into this?
Boy. Oh my good grief! I'm looking through the most overrated actors of all time just to make sure none of my picks are in there. They're not.
Oof. No, I haven't found it. No, I haven't found it. Nobody has done her up yet as
Yeah. Well, there would be my 3 Hollywood picks. Yeah, that would be it. So,
wow,
there you have it. But that's really what I feel like doomed the movie. I think an American audience didn't know what to make of it. And if they're being pulled in by Scarlett Johansson, they might be expecting a straightforward action film, which it is not. And then I think people who were fans of the comics and everything else were immediately going to be at least wary of it. And then when you add on that absurd plot point, I think that destroys anybody who's a hardcore fan. I really do. I mean, it's so... I have to skip through that when I watch it because it is so tooth-grindingly stupid that I can't even just... or I'll walk out of the room and come back, but it's just easier to skip it because it's so bad. The whole movie grinds to a stop for something that is both unnecessary and insulting. It's just stupid. So I understand why people who are big fans of all the other stuff would just give up on it. And again, I think if you're an American audience member, you're going for like Black Widow but Cyborg, and it's not that.
Well,
not
whatever,
really.
Whatever we have, our feelings are about the Ghost in the Shell movie, you have to agree that the guy they got to do Bateau was perfect.
Well, I like 95% of the movie.
Yeah.
I look. I even give a pass to the villain.
Oh, that's who it is. You know what? The girl, the woman. She's a woman. The woman who is in Pacific Rim. That's the person I wanted to play Motoko Kusanagi.
Oh, well, okay. Well, see, see when you said Hollywood, you immediately jettisoned.
I know that. A picture just popped up of her, and I was like, I was like, that's the
actress.
There
were numerous people who said, why would you not use her? Because at the time, Pacific Rim was what year? Pacific Rim was around the same time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 4 years before. Or whatever.
Yeah, Rinko,
so she was
Kikuchi?
She was well known. People were saying, why would you not use her?
Yeah.
And I think it is what you were talking about. I think it was absolutely the decision that they said nobody's going to come to a movie with her. Well, guess what? Nobody came to a movie with ScarJo either. So, you know, and it's not like she hasn't. I mean, she was in Under the Skin. She's been in movies where she's
been
suited
in
to the
good
material.
movies. Yeah.
Yes, but this wasn't one of them. So, but yeah, that's my only real problem with it. Otherwise, I think it's a beautiful. I have the 4K. I've watched it probably a dozen times. It's gorgeous to look at, and I just have to skip one scene. I can't say that about a lot of movies. So I just have to skip the one scene. So that's fine. It's okay. But it's a shame because I think they had the right director for the material. They had a very good cast.
Oh, wait. Yeah. That's really good casting. Oh shit. So the actress who played the Terminator in one of the... I think it was the last Terminator movie. The woman who plays the Terminator.
Oh, from *Halt and Catch Fire*. Sure.
Yes. Somebody just mentioned that.
Okay, but would that draw audiences like the other actresses?
Oh no, it wouldn't. It wouldn't. But she looks good, like for the role, is what I'm saying.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah.
If we're gonna get into that's, I'm trying to substitute for that level of draw.
Yeah. No, she's not. She wasn't really the draw for that either. You know.
And of what did I say? Emily Blunt, Eva Green, and who was the other one? You vetoed the other one. So even between the two of them.
Oh, Evan Rachel Wood.
Yeah. So for putting her aside, between Eva Green and Emily Blunt, Eva Green's not going to pull him in either. It would have to be Emily Blunt because she, I think, Blunt is known.
Yeah.
Yes, she's known. She would be the actual choice by an executive.
Yes.
Because it'd say, well, some people know her. As far as Eva Green is still niche. Don't get me wrong.
Yes.
It's my niche, but it's not,
Yeah, there's a bias going into that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's okay. Whatever. It's I'm still glad it exists, even in an imperfect form. I still have a good time watching it, so whatever. It's okay.
Well, Mr. Wizard, what have you got for me?
Nothing. I have nothing.
Really?
This is my 4th show over 4 days. I had to watch 4 movies.
Shit.
And none of them are ones that I either haven't already talked about or...
Wow.
Did I watch 4 movies? Yeah. Oh, no, I didn't watch 4 movies. Sorry. I had to watch 2 movies.
Yeah.
One of which I've already reviewed, and the other which I don't know that there's much to review because unfortunately there's not a good copy of it, which is 1989's Elves with Dan Haggerty. Worth watching, but I talked with Len Kabaczynski about it for an hour, so go watch that.
Yeah. No, of course. No, that's funny.
I watched 3 keynotes, which were actually about 5 hours for the Adobe Max recap thing that'll be out in January. And then I did the live radio show yesterday. And then honestly, I've been playing S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 instead of watching things because it's the first game in a very, very long time where I actively want to get back to it.
Then very quickly, before we go, give me a quick update on S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2.
Oh, it's fucking fantastic. I did run into my first serious bug where I fell through the world. I didn't care because I save every about 15 feet in that game. That game is so at times relentless that I'm now just used to every 100 yards or so. Save. But I was coming down a ladder and I fell through the world and it just never stopped. I just finally had to reload the game. It never even hit anything. I just kept falling, which was funny. No,
but you enjoy that. You enjoy that kind of shit.
Oh yeah, and it's once in actually how many hours? Does it tell me how many hours I played of that game? Let me see.
Are you on the computer now? See, I know that this says the PS5 will, but
oh no, Steam does too. But I just have to open it and see. Hopefully, it just opens.
Doesn't crash everything.
No, it's not. And it's not that. It's just sometimes you have to sign in 8 times. So let me see. It's updating because I don't run it on the Mac very often. There's only a couple of games I play on the Mac on Steam. But I'm just waiting. It's bouncing a lot. Come on, buddy. Come on. But while I wait for that, I'm well into it now. But honestly, and this is exactly what I was hoping for, I cannot think of another game. This is, you know how we've talked about how we like the early Fallout 76?
Yeah.
Where you would just walk around and see things. All right, it's that. All right, hold on. Stop that update. No. Stop. There we go. All right, I had to stop it from updating. It was trying to update everything on the Mac. All right, so let me go to my library. Go to library, home, and let me look at S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2. God, I have a lot of Steam games.
Now you say that. You say that in such a porny way. Jesus.
Well, because, you look at it. My current amount of playtime is
like
25.4 hours.
It's like Roy Batty when he walks in and he goes, "Oh, you got a lot of toys here."
That's pretty much it, yeah. So 25 hours, and
So you've
I don't think I've
played
progressed.
more than a day straight at this point.
I've played more than a day straight, and I actively want to get, like right now I'm thinking about going back to it. Because
That's good.
it's this, again, like 76, it's this broad open world, and a lot of it is randomized, so you don't really know what you're going to run into. And it really is, as long as you have the right awareness for it, I don't think it's unfair, but it absolutely requires you to be very attentive.
But if you're a fool, then you will suffer.
Oh, you'll die instantly. I mean, I actually had a thing, was it yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday. I went into this cave, and it's called the Death Cave, so it should have been a hint. And I went into it to get an anomaly, which is just one of these magic artifacts. And I thought the hard part of it was getting to the thing, because there's all these anomalies. You have to time it. So not precision timing like a game that's all based around timing. It's not like that. But there's these anomalies that are basically like gravity wells, where if you go into them, they try to crush you. And you might be able to take 2 or 3 of them in a row, depending on what you're wearing. If you have enough armor, you might survive 3 of them, but likely the second one will kill you. The first one's kind of you slipped up, and then you better heal right away type of thing. But you have a bolt. You have an unlimited supply of just bolts, and you throw them. And you have a little thing that kind of beeps if it senses something off, but some of it is just you have to be looking, because some of them are very subtle. And one thing I love about this game, I didn't notice it doing it for a while, but it's such a simple and effective way of conveying danger, or possible danger, is there's 2 specific anomalies that I would call the most common. One is that gravity well thing. Now, that one's pretty easy to spot because it warps the visuals. Like it's almost like, when you look through water, it's slightly warped. So that one's pretty easy to see. And then there's another one that generally manifests as you just see this little like spark in the air, but it's not always there. Now that one, that's the whirlwind. That one, when you get sucked in, it starts whipping you around and then it blows up. And that's typically a one-shot deal. You're just dead. But when you see the whirlwind or the other one, generally one of the other tells is you'll see swirling leaves. Like you'll just see a little vortex of leaves, just real subtle, just kind of at the bottom. But you'll also see those swirling leaves in the middle of nothing. Just generally, they'll just be swirls. So I'll be walking along and I'll just see the leaves and I'll stop. And I'll throw the bolt. And 50-50 whether there's something there or not. And a lot of times there actually isn't anything there. But the fact that they build in that suspicion to you, that you see that visual thing.
Well, and not everyone's gonna build up that pattern.
Right, but it's just one of those things where a set of leaves going in a circle makes me uneasy. Even if there's nothing there. Yeah, there's stuff like that all throughout it. And then
just wait till you're walking around outside one day and you see a swirl of leaves and you go, "Oh, wait a minute."
Right. Yeah. Yeah, right. And then there's a lot of really good ambience. There's generally not really a soundtrack. It's just sounds of the area. So you'll just hear a dog barking. And it may be a pack of mutant dogs, or it might just be a sound effect. Or you'll hear gunshots in the distance. You might never see what it is. But then you'll just hear the wind blow, and I just stop. As soon as the wind blows, I stop. And I start looking around. Because I don't know what that means. Sometimes it means nothing. But sometimes it's right before an enemy shows up.
Sometimes it's something, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like they've got your paranoia ramped up pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, so that Death Cave. So I go to the Death Cave, and it's a series of the gravity wells. And you have to throw the bolt. And when you throw the bolt at a gravity well, it dissipates for about, I'd say, 4 seconds. So when you do it, you hear the crushing sound, and then you'll see that the warping of the air goes away, and then you can go straight through it. And there were a couple of those in sequence, and some of them were really close, where I had to throw it and then stop dead right after and creep along and then throw a bolt, so I thought it was a timing thing. So I get to this little altar, and the thing is there, and I pick it up. And as soon as I do that, suddenly I get mind fucked by a controller, which is a psychic enemy. And that thing is annoying. Because what it can do is, from a distance, it does 2 things. Now, luckily, I had a psychic blocking drug on me that stops the worst of its kind of hallucinogenic effects, because it can manifest hallucinations that can hurt you. And then that makes you kind of, the whole camera will wobble because it's affecting your mind. So the drug blocks that, but it can still do this thing where if he's got line of sight on you, he'll do this thing where he reaches his hand out and suddenly the camera shoots into him really close, and then he shoves you back out, and it stuns you for a couple seconds. So the problem is you can't really, I'm sure somebody who's an expert could. I can't at this point. To try to kill him from range is very difficult because they got rid of night vision in this game. It was in the original. They got rid of it in this one, I think, to amp the difficulty up. So when he's on the other side of the cave, it's dark. I can't see him. So I have to try to make my way back through the anomalies and hope he's not seeing me. And I died at least 10 times until I kind of worked out what the sequence was, where I went, okay, there's these two anomalies. I can stop in between those. I can sit there for a second, get my stamina back, get ready to charge. And I finally was able to get close to him and then use the shotgun. And then he went down in like 8 shots because I just shot him in the head 8 times with a shotgun. Well, most creatures are going down from that pretty quick. But I had to work all that out. I mean, I literally had saved before I went into the cave, which was good because I went and got more ammo. But once I was in there, the game won't let you save once you're in something like that. It stops you because otherwise it doesn't let you gimmick it. So once a combat encounter starts, you cannot save. So I had to, now there's a trick to it, which is when I got to the area right before the anomaly and I'd made it there safely the first way in, I did a quick save so that at least I could start from there. But then once the controller is starting to fight you, you cannot save. So you have to make it all the way out and get him and get out of the cave. But even though I died a bunch of times, I really enjoyed the puzzle because I was like, no, this is doable. This is not something where I'm stuck. I just need to work out what the steps are, figure a plan out, and if it works, I have to stick with it. And I did. And it took me 2 or 3 tries. And then on the 3rd try, I was able to get him. I was able to heal fast enough that he couldn't really affect me. And then I just shot him a bunch of times and he went down. And I was really happy I did that because I just worked it out. And I also like the fact that you can use the environment on the enemies. There was one where I was in basically a tunnel that had electrical storms on either side. And there's little pockets of, sparks on the ground. You have to throw the bolt and it triggers them. And again, you get 3 to 4 seconds of run through that area. And then they come back. So I got to this pipe and I didn't plan this. It was just an accident more than anything, but I happened to look and I thought I saw something moving. I wasn't sure though. So at the end of the pipe on both ends, there were these electrical things. So in the pipe, you're fine. Except obviously there was a skeleton inside. So I guess he wasn't. He must've gotten stuck and couldn't figure a way out. But anyway, there's electrical things. So I basically went up to the pipe, the end that I was trying to get to, threw the bolt, came out, and then backed up. And sure enough, I saw a wave of mutated rats coming at me. But because the electrical field went back up, they all died. They just kept frying themselves because they're dumb. And I just kept luring them in.
This isn't a AAA company that made this, right?
I don't know if it's considered a AAA because it's been in development forever. I mean, a lot of people thought it would never actually come out. I don't know if it could be considered a AAA game. That's a good question. I don't know if this would be considered a AAA game.
I only say that because it sounds very, very polished and very, very clever.
It is. It's largely based. I think Microsoft might have acquired them. I'm trying to remember now. No, I guess not. No. This is a 30-year-old game development company, although a lot of the people have changed. But it's been in development since, let's see. Not 2000, what? 2000. Okay, Shadow of Chernobyl was 2004. That's the first one. And the sequel, 2009 is when they started the sequel. So this game has been in development for 16 years.
Okay, so yeah. So then, yes, it better be this polished at this point.
Well, I mean, the company started with 200 people, went down to 50, and they're in the Ukraine.
Yeah.
So they worked through the war on getting this out. That's why a lot of people thought it was dead, because it was the Ukraine was invaded in 2022. This game only came out this year. So, and some of their developers were killed in the war. So a lot of people didn't think this was ever going to happen.
So you're amazed it works as well as it does.
Yeah, and that's why when people are complaining about the bugs, I'm like, number one, I have really not run. I mean, I've run into some funny things. There was a thing where an enemy was stuck and they couldn't get around a stone in the ground. You're going to find stuff like that. But largely, now there was a day one patch. I didn't buy it and play it the instant it was released, which was smart, I think, on my part. I bought it when I knew there was a patch and the patch loaded and everything seemed to be better. And I really, outside of falling through the world the one time, I've seen that the HUD has disappeared on me a couple times. Okay, reload the game, comes back. If you want to get hung up on that, yeah, there's still bugs. I don't like the fact that the keybinds on a couple things aren't editable, but they're very minor, which is specifically going up and down ladders for whatever reason, even though, because I don't use WASD. I use EDAF for forward, back, left, right. Like I have to space my fingers out. I can't cramp them. WASD is too cramped. So for whatever reason, the up and down ladder is still WS. Well, I don't use those keys. So when I get on a ladder, I have to use those two keys. But that's minor. That's the biggest problem I've had with it. Otherwise, I think the atmosphere is unlike any other game. They have preserved all this. I mean, it feels like you are in the Chernobyl zone. Like everything feels like a threat. But as long as you understand the mechanics of the game and you have spatial awareness, then you're fine. Because many of the creatures can't climb or don't know how. And so if you start to have something run at you, jump on one of the vehicles that's around. Now, it has to be one that's not loaded with radiation, which is 50-50. But I think the game gives you the tools to understand it. The thing is, it is in some ways a older style game in that it's not going to explain every single thing to you right away. And it does rely on you to put some things together yourself.
Which people hate, to be honest with you.
Yes, but I don't think it is completely enigmatic
unfair,
where you can't work it out. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of trial and error. And I think that's okay. It's also interesting in its morality. And this is a really interesting bit about this. Because I was watching a video, because honestly, I was curious. I watched a couple videos about, what, in the early game, this is one thing that absolutely is true. This game starts out, and it gives you very little to combat a world that starts out at almost max difficulty. So you spend a lot of time avoiding danger early on. Till you get better armor, better weapons, whatever. The early game will one-shot you mercilessly if you are careless. If you are slow, methodical, and try to avoid combat until you have at least decent gear, then you'll be fine. Most of my deaths were sloppy. Weren't ones that I was like, well, the game's being cheap. Very few. I've died 60 times, I think. Because there's a counter that runs every time you come
Oh,
back.
that's mean.
I like it. I like it because I actually think that's a pretty low number for playing this much time. That's what, 2 deaths an hour? I think 3 deaths an hour, whatever. That's per hour played. And I guarantee most of those were early on. Because there are times where I would come around a corner and this giant monster would jump at me because I wasn't paying attention to the audio correctly. Or that I didn't, what I started to learn, and if you're playing it early, is if the bloodsuckers show up, because the bloodsuckers are much tougher now than they ever were before, back into a corner so that you can see them coming. And then you just shoot their legs and they back off. But early on, if you're out in the open, you're finished. You are just finished if you can't get to a structure. And the game, I think...
So, no, you know what? You're doing pretty good. Because I just went and looked up death rate in S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2.
Yeah.
And I found a Reddit where people were giving some numbers, right? So 25 deaths in 4 hours. That's one person.
Ooh.
Yeah. That's 9 deaths in 2 hours. There you go. That's still,
Yeah.
Let's see. 75 deaths in 6 hours.
Wow.
Playing on the hardest difficulty.
Oh, all right. Well, I'm also playing on normal. I'm playing on the middle one. I think it's called Veteran. It's Veteran or Stalker. I don't remember which one.
I've got 30 hours on the hardest difficulty, and I'm at 222 deaths.
Well, this is the thing. Here's something else. In this game, bleeding is a serious concern. If you get shot and you start bleeding and you don't deal with it immediately, which can be tough in the middle of a firefight to remember, because you're doing like 8 things at once, you will just bleed to death.
No, dude, you're doing great. If you're dying 2 times, you said 2 times an hour?
Well, I have 60 deaths in 25 hours, so roughly whatever.
Oh yeah. You're doing great so far.
But I also literally will creep along and stop and just listen. And I think that's another thing. This is an older style game where, there is that. But this is what has become one of the most fascinating elements is the morality of the game.
Yeah.
Because the one video I watched, because again, early on, I didn't know if they'd changed a bunch of things. So I'm like, let me watch a couple of these videos that say, here's 10 things to make sure you keep in mind, whatever, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And generally, if you've played the older games, it is largely the same. You don't have to really rethink much. I will say that. That I can think of. Except that I don't know if the food system was quite the same, but it doesn't matter. So, one of the guys was like, you cannot have any morality in this world. He said, if you really want to get ahead, you have to betray everyone and everything. And I was like, jeez, man. It makes sense because this is a very harsh world. This is basically a post where the meltdown was a caused accident and everybody's been walled in. In fact, the way they do the border is you are walled in. If you come in, you probably can't get out because if anybody on the wall sees you, they just shoot you in the face. They just kill you. So the border is a huge wall and there's snipers on it because the government doesn't want anybody coming out. They're like, well, if you went in there, it's basically like Escape from New York. You're not coming out. So that's how they do the border of it. You can't even get close to it. It's kind of like Borderlands. Remember, if you would go too far, the automated guns would shoot you.
They'd warn you. Yeah.
Right. Same. Oh, there's no warning. It does not tell you. I was like curious, so I saw the wall. And I'm like, all right, how close? Bang, dead. All right, got it. I just backed off. But there was a guy. So I went and because I don't like the idea of being that cruel. But I understand that in this world, cruelty is what will keep you alive. So I've been doing kind of a degree system to it. As an example, there was a guy I came across this, and this is what I mean about this is completely random. This wasn't marked. There was no indication there was anything here. I'm just going along, and I see a building. It looks like a farm, and it's got a fence and everything. And I come into there, and I see all these giant, I don't know, they're like mutated cow people or something. I don't know what they're actually called. I mean, they're really horrific looking when you look at them up close, but that's what they kind of look like. And they're making pig sounds, even though there are actual boars that are normal pig-looking boars. They're just their hair's a little mangy. But anyway, I get in there and I see them, and I immediately jump up on something because I know it's tough for them to climb. And I take them all out, and I see a body, and then I hear somebody saying, hey, help, like yelling. So I go into the barn, and the guy's like, oh, man, it's a good thing you came along. Me and my friend were here, and, we got trapped, and I ran into here after I got hit, and I closed the door, and he started banging on the door, but if I'd opened the door, that would have been suicide. So I kept the door closed, and that by itself, I was like, okay, I can understand that. Like, they were overrun. There was, I think, 6 or 7 of those things. So at first I understood it, and I was going to leave him alone. But then a thing popped up as a response, and there were 3 options. One was, you got your friend killed. The second was, yep, you did what you had to do. And then the third one was, boy, that must have been a tough call. And for me, I was like, well, that sounds like a tough call, right?
Yeah, but that tests his response. So what was his response to that?
And he said, not really. It's either kill or be killed out here, man. And then he just started walking away. And I'm like, okay, you're dead. And I blew his head off and took all his shit. Because I'm like, but I have helped other people who have been essentially not scumbags. And those people
that reminds me of? You know what that reminds me of?
Yeah.
In the most recent, is it the Sandman? In the most recent Sandman series they did, where is it David Wenham? Is that his name? What's the name of the actor who plays the guy who gets the bag of sand or the jewel? He gets the jewel. What is it?
You mean the bad guy from the guy who gets the jewel? Wait, which one gets? Oh yeah, David Toulis. David Toulis.
Maybe yeah. The
guy from Dragonheart.
And he gets in the car with the old woman.
Yes,
and she steadily realizes that he's a psychopath, but she remains nice to him, respectful. And at the end,
he gives her the jewel.
He gives her the jewel and just walks away.
Yes,
and you're like, holy shit! And you're like, yeah, because he had this internal morality system, and she met it.
Yeah.
She didn't do anything wrong, and so he gave her this thing to protect her afterwards.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like
Yeah.
that, except the opposite with you, where you met somebody and you were like, "You do not meet my standards."
Right, and there have been other characters who have acted and had more remorse, and I let them go. I won't just kill everybody, because that one video said kill every single person.
What?
Yeah, he said
everybody.
He literally said kill everybody you can and just take their stuff because you're going to need a lot of money, you're going to need a lot of ammo, and
everybody.
Everybody, I mean, obviously there are certain characters I don't think you can kill because they're essential characters.
But basically every random person you meet, you just kill them. You become a serial killer.
Anybody where nobody else will see it necessarily. Yeah, you are a serial killer, yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Fucking hell, that's depressing.
But you know what? But this is the thing. Several characters. There's a place called The Garbage, which was one of the things I really like is if you played the original game, you'll get to revisit a lot of locations later. And some of them are very similar and some of them aren't, to the point where I'm like, is this the place I remember? And most of the time it is. Like, I just came across the starting area from the first game, and it was so weird to come across it so much later in the game. Because in the beginning, in the first Stalker game, you get thrown at this farm with a handgun. And man, it's tough. Like, you have to be as lucky as you are good to make it through that opening sequence. And you cannot avoid it. That is your first fight. The game is like, here it is, bang. Whereas in this, I got to it much later. But anyway, I get there. I got to The Garbage, which is a big location. It's this big literal place where it's a landfill full of radioactive shit. And I come up to the front thing, and there was a guy there who asked for help with something. And I gave him something. And one of the options, because he said, what can I reward you with? And one of the options was, no, it's okay. I just, I'm happy to help. And I picked that option because honestly, the thing cost me nothing. So I gave him like a bandage, and I had like 50 of them. So what the hell do I care? And I didn't know if I needed to curry favor in that area because there is some faction stuff. So I was like, well, better to just get on the good side of somebody. And I said, no, I'm just happy to, I think it's something like we're all in it together or whatever. And he's like, man. Wow. This is his response. It was fucking awesome. It comes up and he says, wow, it's really rare to meet a stalker who actually has some kind of morality. You won't last long here. That's what he says to me. And it's like that is that you do get this undertone to everybody of low grade. I might kill you if the circumstances benefit me enough.
You know what? Be the change you want. Be the change you want, Joe. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there was another mission. So then I ran into these two drunk people at the garbage, and the two of them are there, and they're like, oh, hey, can you do us a favor? And they were drunk. And they're like, can you bring vodka to these? A friend of ours is out trying to find anomalies, and we know the 3 places that he hides his stuff, like his stashes. And we told him that we would give him vodka because that's anti-radiation. Drinking vodka is anti-radiation. There's also medication, but vodka works too. And like, can you take these 3 bottles and put one in each of his stashes and don't rob him? Now, I could have robbed every one of them. I could have taken all the stuff, and then just killed him. But I'm trying to play where I can be a good person. I'm trying to be a good person. So I go out there and I find the 3 stashes, and he's at the 3rd one. And he's like, hey, who are you? And he pulls a gun on me. I'm like, no. I, whatever told me to come out and bring you vodka because you're going into radiated areas. And he's like, vodka? He says, I paid them for anti-radiation medicine. Those assholes ripped me off. And I said, oh, well, here, I'll give you anti-radiation medicine. And he's like, you know what? Thanks, man, but I'm getting the hell out of here. If this is how reliable people are, I can't stay here. I'm leaving. And he takes off. And at that point, I could go take all of his stuff. But then I go back to the 2 guys, and I told them, hey, he was pissed off because he said you owed him medication. And they're like, oh, why'd you, whatever, man, fuck him. And then they didn't pay me. But I couldn't kill them because it was in the middle of the base, and I'm pretty sure everybody would have reacted badly. But basically, they were just, where at first their drunkenness seemed just the 2 of them getting drunk together. After talking to that guy, it was very clear that they are highly unreliable people who just drink all the time, and they're alcoholics. And I'm like, I'm not having anything to do with these people again. Like, right, that was sealed that those were not people I wanted to deal with. And there's a lot of stuff like that where the game doesn't condemn or condone anything. It's just like, this is how it is.
There's no invisible repercussions down the road to some of these murders.
No. There's nothing where you're really. There are apparently two different endings, but I think they are more related to. I don't think any of the decisions, these little things, don't factor in. There's big kind of decisions you make on who you side with, and I'm pretty sure I haven't really come to a lot of those yet because I'm really not doing the main story very much. I'm just kind of wandering around and getting a lay of the land, and just playing around. And there are times where I come across bodies, and I don't know what happened. There's just something had happened there. And weird just stuff out in the middle of nowhere. And again, there's been places where I've come to something and I was sure that something bad was going to happen and nothing happened. But you just hear the wind and the rustling and you hear like an animal screeching in the background. And it's just creepy. But, and then of course at night, because there's a day-night cycle, that's the worst because you can't see very far. You have a little flashlight, but it's realistic. You're not seeing 20 miles away.
No.
So
not.
I've been walking along and suddenly this thing just comes out of the dark and I'm like, ah! And I just reload. Because it scares the shit out of me. But that's what I like about it. And I just like going in there. And I've gone in there and literally accomplished almost nothing except wandering because I just want to see what's around. And there is fast travel, but it's only between certain points. So you can't just open up the map, click something, and say fast travel. You have to go to a settlement where a guide is there. You have to pay them, and then they'll take you to one of the other settlements. So there's only so many fast travel points. And the thing is, the more weighed down you get, the slower you go. So I've been weighed down, and it has taken me 20 to 30 minutes to cover the distance to where I could sell the stuff, but I knew it was valuable. So I just walked. And you can't even run once you're so heavy. So you're just kind of slowly plodding along and hoping that you don't. And here's another thing. When you're weighted down, and this I think is realistic, but it sucks shit.
Oh, is this like Fallout 76 where you walk really slow because you've got a ton of equipment on you?
And then if you get into a fight and you get shot, you can't move because predictably, like if you get shot in the leg, you can't carry the weight if your leg's gone now.
Yeah.
Right? So if you get shot, suddenly your weight just redlines and you are stuck. So you either have to be able to shoot your way out or you're dead. And you know what, though? That's reality. If you've got everything and you're barely making it and you get injured, you either drop weight or you're dead. So I like it. I don't think it's unfair, but it is also, it's not holding your hand.
No, it doesn't sound like it is at all.
No. But plus the world is just very compelling because I just don't know of another game except for Fallout 76 that's like it.
Do you think if and when you beat it, do you think you would go back to it later on? Do you think there's...
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I would go back
to
it.
Because you want a different ending or because you like the environment?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I would go back to it. I would start a whole new game and build all my stuff up again. And I would probably try going to different areas in different times.
Yeah.
And I would be curious about doing certain things differently. Because right now I'm siding with essentially the other stalkers. Because you can either side with the kind of proto-military that's kind of come in. And, I told you about like the monolith guy where everybody thought he was evil. And then I spared him and they were like, all right, moron. So I don't know where that's going. I don't know if killing him would have gotten me a much better weapon up front. Then there was another one. What was the other one? There was a guy who I could have gone and gotten a great weapon from him or something. And I really thought about it and I was like, well, I like the gun I've got. I don't know that I need to do that. Not at this point. It's not worth the risk. My gun works fine.
It's terrible too.
What?
The best gun ever in any game that I've ever used was the gun that would talk shit to you in Borderlands.
Oh, yeah. That gun was great. Yeah.
I mean, that was the best gun I think we've ever used in a game. Just the shit it would say. But anyway, you had a good gun, so you didn't need a better gun.
No, because I have a handgun, a shotgun, an assault rifle, and a sniper rifle. I don't need anything else. Yeah. I don't even use the grenades. I find them very easy to blow myself up.
I would, tell me about it. I'd be very curious to know how different a playthrough is, where you go through it as a psychopath killing everybody versus actually trying to have a morality. Honestly, the killing everybody system just seems lazy. It makes you not... It kind of just bypasses stopping to think about your own judgment.
Well, honestly, I think if you were a marauding maniac, you would actually have a much easier game.
I'm sure, because you just kill everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, outside of the settlements, it means you'll have plenty of ammo, plenty of guns, plenty of stuff to sell.
Yeah, if anything, though, it's a harder game when you try to act like a fucking human being. And that's what makes the apocalypse so difficult.
And that's the interesting part is I think, the easiest way is to just waste everybody. But I think even if you don't take that approach, there is a lot of moral gray area where you have to really think about what the morality of the action is. Because some of the people I don't think should be allowed to live, because some of them are not necessarily evil. But if they're so morally bankrupt, it's like you said, aren't they just contributing to a morally bankrupt zone?
If you meet a guy who's just walking around killing everybody, your impulse is to kill him.
Right. But now
He's
you're a killer of killers. Is that better?
I think it's better to be a killer of killers than a killer of everybody arbitrarily, like randomly.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. If you're somebody who kills bad people versus somebody who just kills everybody, I think there's a difference.
Yeah, and that's kind of what my approach has been.
And listen, I appreciate that you are trying to maintain a level of personal morality.
It's not that difficult, but it is interesting because so many characters regard you as a doofus because you're trying to be good. So there is this thing where I do wonder if it is going to influence the ending. If I'm going to get to the end and they're going to, that will penalize me somehow, because
they'll be like, you jackass, you had morals. Fuck you.
Or if it'll get somebody killed. If my softness will result in a death of an important character. I don't know. It's difficult to say.
I'll be very curious to see.
Yeah, the game has been so far fairly, what's the word for it? Fairly flexible in how I've approached the morality of it. So there was only one encounter where I chose to do something and then I thought about it afterwards and I actually went back to the save and I did something differently to see what if the game would care.
Yeah.
And number one, it didn't. And then I found out later that actually that was the smartest decision. So there's a part where you come to this guy and he's got information for you. And he's like, all right, here's what it is. I captured the guy who knows the code to the place you're trying to get into. I'll give you access to him, but I'm trying to take over part of this area. And there's two rivals of mine. I get rid of one of them or both of them, and I can take over. He's like, ideally both, but if you don't want to kill them both, kill at least one. You bring me back evidence you did it, I'll give you access to the guy. I killed the guy who sounded like an asshole anyway, from the what other people said about him. His name was the Shah. So I went and I found him and I wiped out his camp and I killed him. I went back, gave the guy the thing, the evidence, which was basically like his what do you call it, his PDA or something, or a flash drive. And he's like, all right, guy's down in the basement. So I go down in the basement and the guy in the basement is dead. And he has the information, but he's been killed. I turn around and the guy's like, yeah, now I'm going to kill you because now I can take over. And honestly, I want to see what that information's about. And so then I had to kill all of his people. So basically I had to kill everybody in that camp. And so I thought about it and I'm like, okay, so killing the Shah means anybody else in his group is now against me because I killed their leader.
Mm-hmm.
This guy I've killed, so now there's a power vacuum, so likely somebody else will take over the Shah's territory. So why don't I just kill this fucking guy since I know he's an asshole? And honestly, I didn't like him, but I didn't think there was an option to kill him. So I loaded the earlier save to see if I could kill him. Yes, you could. And I did, and wiped everybody out. So now, and I stuck with that because I really thought that he was invincible. And what I didn't realize was, well, you can't kill him until you get past a certain, like a dialogue point. But then you can. That was a bitch of a fight because, man, they really cornered me at one point. But I wiped out that guy. I don't remember what his name was, the wannabe kingpin. And now I'm still on neutral footing with the other two. Now I will probably end up having to kill him at some point, but at least I'm not now against two groups of people.
Yeah.
So even there, it was like I didn't like him, but I fought the impulse to just wipe him out because I didn't think I could. And then when I found out I could, I'm like, yeah, this is what I want to do anyway. And I just stuck with that. So even there, the game tells you have a binary choice to make, but you actually don't. So again, I like its flexibility, and nothing of that has come back on it
This
yet.
is like an A24 movie.
Kind of
Of games. I mean, that's what it's like. It's like you're watching an art house. You're playing an art house game.
In many ways, yeah. So,
well,
but
I'll be curious to see how it evolves.
Yeah, I want to see where this is going, because I'm very curious what the story is. And I've already run into a couple of people from the original game, but I haven't run into S.T.A.L.K.E.R yet, who was the main character you played, who you thought you were killing the whole game only to find out you were him. And I want to see what ending, because he apparently came back after he had left. So I'm like, why? Because people are like, I've seen him around. I haven't run into him yet. I'm very curious what role he plays. I hope it's not a major role, because I don't want him to be dead, because I liked him. I liked playing as him. So I hope he pops up for something that's like a significant side quest, but then just goes away. Because I don't want him to be a villain. I don't want them to just make him a villain. That would just bother me. But it does, the closest analog for anybody is, it is like Fallout 76 in its early days, except there's a lot more people, which is what a lot of people didn't like about early 76. We didn't have a problem with it, but a lot of other people did. So I would say it is a lot like that. And it is as distinctive a post-apocalypse as Fallout is, except it's far more grounded. This is far more like what you can imagine. This is, okay, if there had been a world nuclear war, this is what it would be like. The only difference is that it's not a world war, it's just this zone. But it is fascinating that this is a working world, very much like Escape from New York, where everybody inside the zone, nobody outside bothers them. They just don't let them leave. You come in there and it's this whole world on its own with an economy and everything, and like a favor system and all this type of thing. And I just am enjoying it because it gives me a lot of freedom within that space to do whatever I want. There's really nothing that tells you can't. You have to do a couple of missions to get past the initial zone. Only because there are people guarding the outside. You need to kind of curry enough favor to get out. But once you're out, then you can kind of go wherever you want. So I think about this game, and I think about getting back to it, and that's highly unusual. I can't think of another game in recent memory where I was really like, I want to carve out an hour or two to play this.
Last game I was like that was the first run of Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah, it's like that.
I wanted to get back to that. I thought about it through the day. I mean, I would come to you and say, I know how we're going to do this fight. And I had thought about it all day, how to strategize a fight to make it so we got to the other end.
And that's very similar to how I am in this. Yeah. This is, I really wish we could play this game co-op.
Oh, God.
Because I think it would be
sure
such an
footing in
game.
Games, we would die a lot.
Well, I mean, the weird part is I think we would play the opposite of how we usually play, where I would be in the front and you would be in the back. So I would be kind of going into areas and then you would be coming up in the back, whereas normally you're kind of up front and I'm firing from long range. Whereas a lot of this, I'd be kind of weeding out the anomalies and figuring out a route, and then we'd be kind of tag teaming onto the enemies.
You'd be the Pathfinder.
Yes. So, but I think now I'm playing on PC. I can't speak to how the bugs or the bugginess of the performance is on a console, although from what I read, the PS5 performs very well. But I really, outside of minor stuff, annoying at times, but minor to almost nothing that made me, outside of falling through the world and having to do a quick load a couple of times when the menu disappeared on me a few times, which was an annoyance, but it wasn't really like, and they fixed the bug where my armor was displaying as a gun, which was hilarious, but did make it kind of tough to figure out what I was upgrading. But they fixed that. And outside of falling through the world once, and honestly, I was like spamming the climb down key a bunch. And I think I just overdid it, and it's just like, fuck you, and it just opened a trapdoor and threw me out. And that was fine, because that was just a quick reload. Outside of that, I really haven't had a lot of bugginess on the PC, so I don't know about other stuff, but it has not been nearly as bad as some people. Now, maybe I'm lucky, because this is the problem with the PC is if somebody has one different video card, maybe it's a complete, utter mess.
Well, there's
and it
so
won't
many
even
different pieces to different computers. It's
But
not,
I do
it's
think
not a systematic thing all the way through.
It is not, but I also think they've done some aggressive patching on it, and I think it is in a much better state now than it was at launch. So I'd have no problem recommending it, especially to anybody who really enjoyed the first one, because I feel like this was one of those times where it was smart not to change much. They updated the things that needed to be updated, and they wisely figured out that, okay, there's actually a lot of this stuff that we should just redo from the first one and not completely reinvent the wheel. And I think that was a very smart move. So I'm really enjoying it. Yeah, I don't know where the story's going. I really don't. And that's okay. I don't hate that, but yeah, I don't know. So we'll see. I shall report back as the story goes on.
And this concludes your this is your 4 shows in 4 days run?
Yes, this is the last one.
Yeah. Joe's a busy guy.
Yeah, so basically the show with Len and I is out on his YouTube channel, and that's where we review Elves and Maniac Cop 2, which is a delightful Christmas double feature. The Adobe Max Recap show will be out in the first week of January. That will be out on the first Monday, which I think is the 9th, I want to say, or 7th or something like that. And then the Heartbeat Hero Radio show, which was a trivia show where I was really sure that me and the guy that was on my team, we were winning. So if you watch that, you'll see me at points very, very aggressively overconfident in our point lead. But sadly, we lost by 1 point, which I was very, very pissed about. But that's also out. That's over on twitch.tv/Heartbeat Hero Radio. And yeah, that's it. And then Doug and I will be resuming our Star Trek double episodes in the new year. But that I've got a little time for. So I don't think... Oh! You reminded me. I forgot.
Yes. I didn't say shit, but go on.
No, but when you said busy, it reminded me of one other thing. This is a highly unusual thing, but I really didn't know what else to do with this. So Andy Last over on Beyond Synth, every year at the end of the year, he does a thing where he kind of tells everybody who's in the Patreon for his show, hey, I want to do like listener catch-ups, and so he says, who wants to call in? As I said on the Heartbeat Hero Radio show, I'm a podcast whore, so I'll just go down anybody's show. What do I care? Because I'm amazed anybody listens to me at all. So I said, I'll do it. I'm always like number 1 or 2. I'm like, I'll do it immediately as soon as he says it. And he said this year, he's like, I'm trying to cut down because he is very, very heavy on editing. He wants his show perfectly honed, far more than anything I'll ever do, where he's putting specific background music and doing transitions and all kinds of stuff. So in the past, they've been 20 to 30 minutes, and he had so many of them that it took him forever to edit it. So he said, I really want to keep them down to 5 or 10 minutes. Now, as you can imagine, that's a little challenging for me to only talk for 5 or 10 minutes. But I said, that's fine. You give me a timer. Practice. Yeah, I said, if I know the time, I can keep it there. So we set up, scheduled it. He schedules all his stuff. And he records using a cloud service. So my thought was, well, I'm going to record just in case the cloud service fails. That way I've got a backup for him. I didn't even mention it because I didn't even think about it. But anyway, we jump on the call. And we're talking, and I'm sitting there, and I'm waiting for him to say, okay, let's wind it up. Because I'm just assuming that he's recording already. But he's talking, and I'm looking at the thing, and I'm like, man, it's been an hour. And he's finally like, okay, we should probably start recording soon. And I'm like, you haven't been recording this whole thing? He said, no, we were just chatting. And it was whatever. And so he recorded maybe a 5 or 10 minute clip, but I have an hour and 22 minutes. So I said, do you want this? It is a show. We're talking about stuff. It's not just us sitting there doing nothing. We're chatting for most of it. And he said, no. So I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to release it as a Patreon only show because it doesn't really fit into anything.
Oh,
and
interesting.
I don't, it's not a late night. It's not a regular show. It's sort of a black hole show.
It's an extra bit. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a time displacement product. I don't know. It's something. So that is going to, and I don't care if it's paid or free. Doesn't matter. I'm just going to post it on Patreon, but it's going to be Patreon only. So if you're not a part of the Patreon, I guess that's about the only enticement I can give you because I really don't do much where it's well, I don't because I don't. Most of the time, I don't have something where I feel comfortable putting it on only Patreon. But since this is sort of a bottle show that doesn't really exist in anything, whatever. I'm going to put it there because I think there's some entertainment in it, but maybe there isn't, and that's another reason. I'm just going to put it there. And so, if you are a member of the Patreon, I will post that probably. I'll probably put it out for the last week of the year. So I don't know what day. I mean, it doesn't matter because it doesn't figure into the chronology of the regular shows. So I don't really care. But I'll probably do it as like a Christmas bonus episode. And it's just, I think we're talking about AI stuff. And, like I said, it's an hour and 22 minutes or so long. And hold on, how long is that? Let me look. I even called it AL bonus because it was not planned to be a show. It's an hour 22 and change. So I'm going to put it out as just kind of a weird thing. And but that'll be Patreon only. So if you're part of the Patreon, you'll see that. And if you're not, maybe that's a reason to go become a member of the Patreon, paid or not. So like I said, I don't want to present it as something where I'm saying I'm going to do this a lot. I'm not. But why not? So, yeah. And that's it. On that note, I got nothing else for you. So, what do we got? One more show before the year's out, I think? Yeah, I think there's one more show, which will be the last one of the year. And, so, yeah. That's it. Have a wonderful weekend as you get ready. This is the last one before Christmas, not the last one of the year. So... Okay. Or whatever holiday, because I know there's lots of different ones. So whatever holiday you celebrate, have a wonderful holiday. I hope this show is not an escape or a prequel to a heated family event. But if it is, sorry.
Good luck.
Don't worry, there'll be another show. Yeah. I am planning to watch, as a small preview, I found a very interesting movie. I won't say what it is, but it sounds bonkers. So... it's a Spanish-Italian production, which bodes very well. So, and it is Christmas themed, but in a warped way. So I'm looking forward to that one. So I will watch that, and that, if nothing else, know that's coming. So drink your way through the family holiday if you have to, but don't overdo it. Don't drive. But alcohol can be an assistive for that. And if it's that miserable, I will have what I hope is... it will be worth talking about. I'm positive just on the premise. But I think it'll be a lot of fun from what I've read. So have a wonderful holiday. And we'll see you, or we'll talk to you in the next show, which will be the last show of the year. And that's it. Have a wonderful weekend and a good holiday. All right, bye. Visit OzoneNightmare.com to subscribe to new episodes, browse through our back catalog, or to find links to support the show. Follow @OzoneNightmare on Twitter for the latest episode postings and other show information. If 280 characters just isn't enough, you can always email us, theozonenightmare@gmail.com. The opening theme for the show is provided by Heartbeat Hero. The closing theme is provided by Ogre. Please visit and support these artists using the links in the show notes for each episode.